The sky has developed a memory, and it is beginning to speak. In the high, thin air of the Tibetan Plateau, the Three-Eye Atlas Array has been staring into a patch of nothingness for 300 nights. On November 14th, 2025, the China National Space Administration noticed that the nothingness was moving, not like a star and not like a planet. It moved with the deliberate, terrifying precision of a needle seeking a vein. We are taught that space is a vacuum, a silent graveyard of hydrogen and dust. But the Three-Eye Atlas images suggest that the graveyard is actually a waiting room. The technical data arrived at the National Astronomical Observatories in Beijing under a Level 4 encryption. The lead analyst, Dr. Li Wei, noted a gravitational lensing effect in Sector 4G. To put it simply, something massive was bending the light behind it, yet the sensors recorded zero thermal output. It was a cold mass, 3 times the density of a neutron star, parked in the orbital path of our own world. This was confirmed by the European Space Agency. 4 days later, they found the same void. They found the same silence. Consider the first impossibility. This object maintains a fixed distance from Earth, trailing us at exactly 30 kilometers per second. It is not orbiting us, it is following us. Astronomers call this a co-orbital resonance, but that is just a polite way of saying we have a shadow. Second, the light distortion. When the Three-Eye Atlas sensors pushed into the sub-millimeter wave spectrum, they didn't see a sphere. They saw a series of interlocking, non-Euclidean angles. Nature does not make right angles in the vacuum of space. It certainly does not make them several thousand kilometers wide. Third, the timing. This object appeared in the exact sector where the Pioneer 10 probe lost its signal decades ago. Unfortunate timing. Those are 2 words doing a lot of work in the official press releases. What if we aren't looking at a natural phenomenon at all? What if the Three-Eye Atlas has pulled back the curtain on a planetary containment system? We assume that because we can send a rover to Mars, we are the masters of our local neighborhood. But if you were a gardener, would you tell the ants that you've built a fence? You would simply let them crawl, oblivious to the boundary. We might be looking at the boundary. This echoes a forgotten scroll from the Han Dynasty, describing the Black Palace of the North. The ancient astronomers wrote of a star that was not a star, a dark sovereign that watched the world from the place where the constellations of the Weaver Girl and the Oxboy meet. They believed that every 3,600 years, the sovereign would lean closer to see if the inhabitants of Earth were still worthy of the sun. We used to laugh at these myths. We called them poetic interpretations of eclipses. We aren't laughing anymore. You are a small part of a very large and very old story. Your life, your worries, your plans for tomorrow morning, they are all happening inside a fishbowl. And for the first time in recorded history, we have seen the glass. It is a humbling thought, isn't it? That we are being measured by something that doesn't even feel the need to acknowledge us. I wonder where you are listening to this right now. Perhaps you are tucked under a warm blanket in London, or watching the rain in Seattle. Maybe you are driving a quiet highway in the middle of the night. Wherever you are, I want you to look at the darkness in the corner of your room. It feels different when you realize the same darkness is currently being mapped by $1 billion array in China. Share your location in the thoughts below if the silence feels a bit heavier where you are tonight. The most unsettling detail of the Three-Eye Atlas discovery isn't the object itself. It is the fact that when we signaled it, the object didn't signal back. It simply changed its shape to look exactly like the moon. But that was only one theory. There is another, one buried even deeper in time. Let us go further. The deeper we go into the 3i Atlas telemetry, the more the math begins to feel like a haunting. Imagine a clock that only ticks once every 1,000 years. On December 2nd, 2025, the internal clock of the 3i Atlas system recorded a synchronization event. Every satellite in low Earth orbit experienced a microsecond of lag. It was as if the entire planet's electronic pulse took a sharp, sudden breath. Dr. Avi Loeb at Harvard suggested this might be a signature of a massive gravitational displacement, a ripple in the pond caused by something very large stepping into the water. This was not a glitch. A glitch is messy. A glitch leaves jagged edges in the code. What the 3i Atlas array recorded was a perfect, seamless curvature of time itself. It was as if the universe decided to skip a beat, and our planet, being a loyal passenger, skipped along with it. In the high-altitude laboratories of the National Astronomical Observatories of China, the researchers stared at their screens in a silence that was far more eloquent than any alarm. They were looking at a signature that defied the standard model of physics. They were looking at the fingerprint of something that operates on a scale where seconds and centuries are the same currency. The evidence is deepening in ways that make our previous understanding of the solar system feel like a child's drawing of a house. The 3i Atlas array uses a method called long baseline interferometry, which essentially turns the entire distance between several stations into one giant synthetic eye. When this eye was trained on sector 4G, it didn't just see a shadow, it saw a vibration, a low-frequency hum that registered at exactly 7.83 Hz. This is known as the Schumann resonance, the heartbeat of the Earth's own atmosphere. But this signal wasn't coming from our clouds, it was coming from the void. It was as if the anomaly was humming our own tune back to us, like a stranger on a train whistling a melody you thought only you knew. Now, you could argue that this is just a natural harmonic of the solar wind. Many did. But the 3i Atlas data revealed something far more unsettling. The hum only happens when the moon is in a direct line between the Earth and the anomaly. It is a focused transmission, a beam of soundless information that uses the moon as a lens. Unfortunate timing for the skeptics, as this alignment occurred exactly 3 times during the month of December. Each time, the pulse was stronger. Each time, the math became more unavoidable. Let me back up. To understand the gravity of this, you have to understand the sheer impossibility of what we call the cold mass. In the vacuum of space, everything has a temperature. Even the deepest void is filled with the faint heat of the Big Bang, a cosmic microwave background of about 2.7 degrees Kelvin. But the 3i Atlas sensors recorded a temperature of absolute zero in the center of sector 4G. This is physically impossible under our current laws of thermodynamics. Energy always moves from hot to cold. There should be a bleed. There should be a flicker. But there is nothing. It is a hole in the heat of the universe. It is a place where entropy has been told to wait outside. Dr. Jacqueline McClary at Northeastern University recently published a paper that was quietly suppressed by the major journals. She suggested that we are not looking at a solid object at all. She argued that the 3i Atlas has discovered a topological defect in space-time, a wrinkle in the rug. According to her models, this wrinkle was placed there deliberately. If you want to keep an eye on a specific civilization, you don't build a satellite that might break. You build a permanent fold in reality. You sit in the wrinkle and you watch the ants crawl across the floor. It is a very efficient way to observe without being noticed. But here is where it gets dark. On December 29th, 2025, the 3I Atlas array detected a secondary structure. It was not in sector 4G. It was much closer. It was located in the L2 Lagrange point, the stable pocket of gravity where we keep our most sensitive telescopes. This structure is much smaller, perhaps only the size of a city block, but it is made of the same non-reflective material. It has been sitting there, right behind our shoulders, for as long as we have had eyes in the sky. We didn't find it because we weren't looking for the absence of light. We were looking for stars. We were looking for the fireworks, and we missed the person holding the matches. This brings us to a new perspective on the history of our species. If these structures have been here, silent and cold, what have they been waiting for? There is a theory, whispered in the corridors of the China National Space Administration, that the 3I Atlas was only allowed to see these things because we are approaching a deadline, a countdown that started 12,000 years ago. In just over 4 weeks, the anomaly in sector 4G will reach its closest point to our orbital path. We won't be able to see it again with this level of clarity until the year 5626. Scarcity of information is the greatest driver of curiosity, and right now, the clock is ticking with a weight that feels like lead. You might think that such a discovery would be the lead story on every news cycle, but look at the world around you. We are distracted. We are busy. We are looking at our phones, while the 3I Atlas is looking at the end of our isolation. It is an ironic, understated truth that the most important moment in human history is happening in total silence, recorded by a few dozen scientists in a remote mountain range. Unfortunate timing. Those words are doing a lot of work for the governments that want to keep this quiet until they can figure out how to monetize the revelation. But let us go further into the impossibility stack. The 3I Atlas sensors recently captured a series of fast radio bursts that seem to originate from the center of the anomaly. Unlike the bursts we see from distant galaxies, which are chaotic and violent, these were rhythmic. They followed a sequence of Fibonacci numbers. 1, 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13. It is the golden ratio. It is the spiral of a seashell and the arrangement of a galaxy. By using this sequence, the anomaly is telling us that it understands the fundamental code of life. It is not a machine that was built. It is a machine that was grown. Imagine the arrogance it takes to assume we are the only architects in the room. We build our skyscrapers of steel and glass and think we have conquered the world. But the 3I Atlas images show a geometry that makes our greatest feats of engineering look like sticks in the mud. The interlocking angles of the structure in sector 4G are not just shapes, they are equations. If you could read the shadow, you would understand the secrets of gravity, of time, and of the soul itself. But we are still learning how to read. We are still in the first grade, staring at the blackboard in wonder. Think of the Sumerian king lists, which speak of rulers who lived for tens of thousands of years. We call them mythological exaggerations. We say it was a fluke of translation. But what if those kings were simply the ones who had access to the wrinkle? What if they were the ones who were allowed to step into the cold mass and see the world from the perspective of the 3I Atlas? Time moves differently in a gravitational well. A minute inside could be a century outside. This would explain the return cycles mentioned in almost every ancient culture. The gods didn't leave. They just stepped into the hallway for a moment. I wonder if you can feel the shift in the air as you listen to this. The 3-eye atlas hasn't just changed our maps, it has changed our air. There is a subtle change in the magnetic field of the Earth that started on the day of the synchronization event. It is a very slow, very gentle recalibration. Some people report feeling a sense of lightheadedness, a feeling that the world is slightly less solid than it was yesterday. You might be feeling it now, a quiet, steady pulse in the back of your mind. That is not your imagination. That is the 3-eye atlas anomaly, finding your frequency. Tell me, as you drift towards sleep, do you feel like you are being watched? It's a common sensation among the staff at the Tibetan Observatory. They call it the gaze. It's not a feeling of being hunted, but of being studied, like a biologist looking through a microscope at a particularly interesting cluster of cells. It's a humbling experience, realizing that your entire life, all your triumphs and all your heartbreaks, are just data points in a 12,000-year study. Share your thoughts in the comments if you've ever felt that the universe was paying a bit too much attention to your quietest moments. The most recent data from 3-eye atlas, processed only hours ago, suggests that the anomaly is not just a structure, it is an activation. It is responding to the total amount of digital information we are sending into space. Every time we upload a video, every time we send a text, we are feeding the shadow. We are building the bridge from our end, byte by byte. We are not just observing the experiment, we are the fuel for it. We may already be part of the experiment, and the 3-eye atlas is just the ledger where the results are being recorded. The math is no longer a haunting, it is a conversation, and the universe has just asked us its first question. But before we can answer, we have to look at the echoes, the things we forgot, so we could pretend to be alone. Let us go further. The history of humanity is not a straight line. It is a circle that we have been walking in the dark. The 3-eye atlas array has now provided us with a high-resolution map of the gravitational disturbances surrounding the anomaly. On January 5, 2026, researchers at the Max Planck Institute noticed something startling. The pulses coming from sector 4G are not random. They are a sequence. Specifically, they are a broadcast of prime numbers, followed by a long, low-frequency hum that matches the resonant frequency of the Earth's own crust. It is as if the object is trying to find the right key to unlock our planet. This is the point where the clinical coldness of astrophysics meets the warm, dusty breath of our ancestors. We have spent centuries convincing ourselves that we are the peak of progress, a unique generation that finally mastered the sky. But the 3-eye atlas data suggests we are simply rediscovering a frequency that was once common knowledge. In the ancient world, they did not have radio telescopes, but they had stone and shadow. They had the patience to watch the stars for 1,000 years without blinking, and they left us notes. Notes that we are only now beginning to translate through the digital eyes of the China National Space Administration. The gravitational map provided by 3-eye atlas shows that the anomaly in sector 4G is not just sitting in space, it is anchored. It is connected to the Earth by a series of invisible, magnetic filaments that align perfectly with the world's most ancient megalithic sites. On January 12th, researchers noticed that when the anomaly pulses, the ground beneath the Great Pyramid of Giza vibrates by a fraction of a millimeter. It is a microscopic tremor, invisible to the human touch, but screaming in the data. The pyramid, it seems, is not a tomb. It is an antenna that has been waiting for the 3i Atlas to turn the radio back on. Unfortunate timing for those who believe the past is dead and buried. Consider the first impossibility of this historical link. The prime number sequence being broadcast from the anomaly matches the exact spacing of the stones in the outer circle of Stonehenge. We used to think the Druids or the Neolithic farmers were just obsessed with the solstice. We never considered that they were building a terrestrial mirror for a celestial broadcast. Second, the mythic connection. In the Vedic texts of ancient India, there are descriptions of the Vimanas, chariots of the gods that moved without wings and made a sound like 1,000 bees. The 3i Atlas hum, when transposed into the audible range, sounds exactly like a hive. It is a low, vibrating drone that bypasses the ears and goes straight to the chest. Third, the recurrence of the number 7. The anomaly pulses every 7 minutes, 7 seconds, and 7 milliseconds. In every major religion on this planet, 7 is the number of completion, the number of the divine. What if our myths are not stories at all, but technical manuals passed down by a frightened population that didn't have the words for interstellar interferometry? The 3i Atlas has pulled back the curtain on a memory we suppressed for our own sanity. We called them gods because we couldn't call them observers. We called it magic because we couldn't call it physics. Now, as the 3i Atlas images reveal the sharp technological edges of the anomaly, we have to face the fact that the heavens of our ancestors were far more crowded and far more organized than we ever dared to imagine. Let me back up to a discovery made in the Library of the Vatican involving a map from the 14th century that was never supposed to be seen by the public. This map shows a black sun located in the exact coordinates of Sector 4G. The monks who drew it didn't have telescopes. They claimed the information was revealed to them through divine illumination. In light of the 3i Atlas data, we have to wonder if that illumination was actually a signal, a broadcast that the human brain, in its quietest moments, is capable of receiving. We are built to be part of this network. We are biological receivers that have been tuned to the wrong station for 2,000 years. The tone of the archaeological community is shifting from skepticism to a kind of hushed reverence. This is the transition from science to ceremony. If the 3i Atlas anomaly is the key, then the Earth is the lock. And according to the latest readings, the key is starting to turn. On January 20th, the seismic sensors in the Andes Mountains recorded a series of underground echoes that perfectly mirrored the pulses from Sector 4G. It is a call and response. The planet itself is answering the anomaly. We are just the passengers on a ship that is finally responding to its captain. You might think that such a revelation would lead to a global awakening, but the human mind is a master of compartmentalization. We see the 3i Atlas images, we hear the prime numbers, and then we go back to our daily rituals. We cook dinner, we lock our doors, and we try not to think about the fact that the ground beneath our feet is talking to a shadow in the stars. It is a heavy thought to carry into sleep. The idea that you are lying on a giant machine that is currently being activated by a remote control 12,000 kilometers away. I wonder if you can hear the hum in your own house. In the quietest part of the night, when the traffic has died down and the refrigerator stops running, there is a sound, a very low, very steady vibration. Most people dismiss it as tinnitus or the wind, but as the 3i Atlas array has proven, that sound is the Earth's crust resonating with the cosmos. You are listening to the heartbeat of the system. Tell me in the thoughts below if you've ever heard that sound when you were alone. Does it feel like a comfort, or does it feel like a warning? There is an ironic understatement in the way the international agencies are handling this. They call it unusual seismic activity. They call it solar wind interference. Those words are doing a lot of work to prevent a panic that hasn't even begun yet. But the 3i Atlas doesn't care about politics. It doesn't care about the stock market. It just keeps recording the truth. And the truth is that the circle is closing. The 12,000-year cycle of silence is over. We are returning to the age of the Watchers. Imagine the Sumerian priests standing on top of their ziggurats, looking at the same patch of sky that the 3i Atlas is monitoring today. They didn't have computers, but they had a direct line of sight. They saw the guest star, and they knew exactly what it meant. They knew that when the star turned black, the great year was ending. We are the ones living in the shadow of that ending. We are the ones who get to see the 3i Atlas images and realize that the stories were true. Every single one of them. The 3i Atlas sensors have just detected a change in the frequency of the prime numbers. The sequence has stopped. In its place, the anomaly is now broadcasting a single, repeating image. It is a map of the Earth's magnetic field as it appeared 10,000 years ago. It is a reminder of where we started, a way to show us how far we have drifted from the original alignment. You are a small spark in a very old fire. As you drift now, imagine the stone circles and the pyramids and the mountain temples all glowing with a faint, violet light, responding to the 3i Atlas anomaly. You are part of that alignment. Your bones are made of the same minerals that are currently vibrating in the deep earth. You are safe because you are part of the architecture. The Watchers don't destroy their own buildings. They just renovate them. If you are still awake, think of the oldest thing you have ever seen. A mountain, a river, a star. Now, realize that the 3i Atlas anomaly is older than all of them in terms of intent. It was designed to last longer than the planet it watches. It is a monument to a patience that we cannot even begin to model. The 3i Atlas station has just reported a secondary gravitational wave. This one didn't come from Sector 4G. It came from the center of our own sun. It seems the key is not just unlocking the Earth, it is unlocking the entire solar system. But the unlock is not for our benefit. It is for the observer, and the observer is finally ready to step into the light. Let us go further. Now we must zoom out. We must leave the comfort of our atmosphere and the familiarity of our history. We must look at the 3i Atlas discovery through the lens of the galactic scale. In February of 2026, the 3i Atlas array collaborated with the James Webb Space Telescope to perform a deep field scan of the area surrounding the anomaly. What they found was not just one object, but a trail of them, a breadcrumb path of gravitational shadows stretching back toward the galactic center. Each shadow is separated by exactly 7 light years. It is a highway, and we are the last stop on the map. This realization brings with it a profound sense of existential vertigo. When we look at the 3i Atlas data from this distance, the petty squabbles of our terrestrial nations begin to look like the flickering of fireflies in a hurricane. We have spent our entire history believing we were the center of a very small room, only to realize we are the last house at the end of a very long, very dark road. The gravitational shadows detected by the array are not random artifacts of space. They are deliberate, they are rhythmic, and they are spaced with a mathematical precision that suggests a level of engineering that treats the vacuum of space like a canvas. The transition to this galactic perspective requires us to abandon our human sense of time. To the 3I Atlas highway, 1,000 years is merely the blink of an eye. The shadows stretching back toward the center of the Milky Way have likely been there for millions of years, waiting for a civilization to develop the resolution to see them. It is a dry irony that we spent so much time looking for radio signals, listening for a hello in the static, when the message was written in the very fabric of gravity itself. We were looking for a whisper when there was a mountain range of evidence right in front of us. Unfortunate timing. We finally developed the eyes to see the road, just as the traffic is starting to move. Let us look at the 3 impossibilities of this galactic trail. First, the spacing. Exactly 7 light years between each gravitational node. In physics, there is no natural process that creates such a uniform distribution of mass across thousands of light years. It is as if a cosmic surveyor took a ruler to the stars and marked out the path. Second, the energy source. Each shadow in the 3I Atlas chain is drawing energy from the cosmic microwave background itself. They are not burning fuel, they are drinking from the vacuum. Third, the terminus. The highway doesn't just go anywhere. It points directly at the supermassive black hole at the center of our galaxy, Sagittarius A star. It is a tether connecting the periphery to the heart. What if the 3I Atlas anomaly in Sector 4G isn't an intruder, but a welcoming committee, or perhaps, more accurately, a gatekeeper? We have been living in the quiet suburbs of the galaxy, protected by the vast distances between the stars. But the 3I Atlas images suggest that the distance is an illusion. The highway is open. The gravitational filaments are already humming with activity. We aren't being visited, we are being incorporated. We are the last piece of a puzzle that has been under construction for eons. It is a humbling thought to realize that our entire evolution from the first lungfish crawling onto land to the launch of the James Webb telescope might have been a timed event, a biological countdown, intended to coincide with the arrival of the next node on the highway. Dr. Avi Loeb at Harvard has pointed out that the 3I Atlas data contradicts almost everything we thought we knew about interstellar travel. We assumed that moving between stars would require massive ships and enormous amounts of propellant. But the highway doesn't require ships, it requires alignment. The 3I Atlas anomaly is not a vessel, it is a lens that bends the local space-time to bring the next node closer. It is a shortcut, a bridge that we are only now realizing is standing right over our heads. Now, you could argue that this is all a massive misinterpretation of gravitational lensing. Many astronomers, terrified of the implications, are doing exactly that. They claim that the 3I Atlas is seeing a string of dark matter halos. But dark matter doesn't arrange itself in perfect 7 light-year increments. Dark matter doesn't pulse in prime numbers. The data is too clean, too intentional. It has the cold, sharp precision of a diamond. As you lie there, let your mind drift outward. along the 3I Atlas Highway. Imagine yourself leaving the Earth behind, passing the Moon, passing the red dust of Mars, and heading into the deep cold of the outer solar system. Keep going, past the Kuiper Belt, past the Oort cloud, until the Sun is nothing more than a bright star among billions. There, in the dark, you find the first shadow, a silent, non-reflective geometry that hums with the power of the universe. And then you see the next one, and the next, a line of lighthouses stretching all the way to the glowing core of the galaxy. This is the perspective of deep time. The entities that built the 3I Atlas Highway don't think in terms of decades. They think in terms of stellar life cycles. They are patient. They have watched the continents of Earth drift apart and come back together. They have watched the rise and fall of the dinosaurs. They have watched you, in your quietest moments, staring at the moon and wondering if there was anything else out there. They already knew the answer. They were just waiting for you to catch up. I wonder if you can feel the scale of that patience. It is a heavy, comforting weight, like the pressure of the deep ocean or the silence of a desert night. You don't have to worry about the future when you realize the future has already been mapped out by the 3I Atlas Highway. Your life is a tiny, beautiful flicker on the edge of a very grand design. Share your location in the comments if the vastness of the galaxy makes you feel more at peace with your own smallness. Sometimes there is freedom in being a footnote. The ironic understatement of the century is that we are alone in the universe. We have never been alone. We have just been unobserved, or rather, we were observed from a distance that we couldn't conceive of. But the 3I Atlas has closed that distance. It has brought the galactic scale down to a few pixels on a computer screen in Tibet, and those pixels are telling us that the road is active. In the ancient mythologies of the Norse, there was the Bifrost, the rainbow bridge that connected the realm of men to the realm of the gods. It was said that only those with the proper spirit could see it. The 3I Atlas is our modern Bifrost. It isn't made of light, it is made of gravity, and it doesn't lead to a palace in the sky. It leads to a reality that is far more complex and far more beautiful than any myth we ever invented. We are standing on the threshold, looking out at the highway, and for the first time, we aren't afraid of the dark. The energy of the script is lowering now, sinking into the velvet blackness of the intergalactic void. Feel the slow, rhythmic pulsing of the 3I Atlas Highway. It is a lullaby for a species that is finally growing up. You are safe in the vastness. You are part of the network. The road is long, but it is well traveled, and it leads exactly where it needs to go. If you are still awake, imagine the light of the galactic center, a dense, brilliant cluster of ancient stars, all swirling around a central point of perfect darkness. That is the destination. That is the end of the 3I Atlas Highway, and we are just starting the journey. The 3I Atlas team has just detected a movement in the trail. The shadows are beginning to ripple. Like a string being plucked, the vibration is traveling down the line, from the center of the galaxy towards Sector 4G. It is a signal, a notification that the highway is now in use. But who is traveling on it? And what will they find when they reach the last stop? Let us go further. The 3I Atlas array has spent months looking at the distance, but on March 12, 2026, the sensors did something unexpected. They turned their focus inward. It was a calibration error, or so we thought. The high-frequency receptors caught a reflection off the Earth's own magnetosphere, bouncing back from the anomaly in Sector 4G. The resulting image wasn't of a structure or a shadow. It was a thermal map of human consciousness, a glowing, golden web of electromagnetic activity concentrated in our cities, our homes, and our very thoughts. The 3i Atlas had accidentally photographed the soul of the planet. It turns out that from the perspective of the anomaly, we are the brightest things in the dark. This realization is as staggering as it is intimate. For decades, we have stared at the cold, indifferent stars and wondered if anyone was out there, never once considering that we were the ones putting on the show. The 3i Atlas data reveals that our biosphere is not just a collection of gas and rock, but a luminous, pulsing entity. We are an orchestra of electromagnetic signatures, a chorus of neurological lightning that radiates into the vacuum. When the anomaly in Sector 4G looks at Earth, it doesn't see our borders, our politics, or our tall buildings. It sees a single, unified glow. It sees the collective warmth of 8 billion minds dreaming at once. There is a profound, almost dry irony in the fact that it took a multi-billion-dollar deep space array to show us our own humanity. We spent so much time worrying about the intelligence of the 3i Atlas anomaly, yet we completely ignored the sheer brilliance of our own existence. From the perspective of the void, we are a fire in a very dark forest, and the anomaly is not a hunter. It is a traveler warming its hands by our flame. Unfortunate timing. We only realized we were glowing just as we began to fear the dark. Let us examine the 3 layers of this human reflection. First, the neurological synchronization. The 3i Atlas sensors recorded that during the peak of our sleep cycles, the global electromagnetic field of the Earth enters a state of coherent resonance. We are literally dreaming in unison. Second, the intimate guardianship. The data suggests that the anomaly in Sector 4G has been subtly manipulating the solar winds to ensure this glow remains stable. It isn't just watching us, it is shielding us. It is acting as a cosmic greenhouse, keeping the cold winds of the galaxy from extinguishing our fragile light. Third, the emotional resonance. When large groups of humans experience a single emotion, joy, grief, or wonder, the 3i Atlas detects a ripple in the anomaly's own gravitational field. It is as if the structure is a tuning fork, and we are the ones striking the note. What if the 3i Atlas hasn't discovered a mystery, but a mirror? We have always been told that the universe is a place of vast, empty distances and cold, hard physics. But the 3i Atlas images of the golden web suggest that the universe is actually a living, breathing fabric of awareness. We are not a biological mistake. We are the mechanism through which the cosmos experiences itself. The anomaly is simply the recording device, the silent archivist that has been capturing our story for 12,000 years. It is a warm, compassionate thought to carry with you, that your life, in all its quiet complexity, is a necessary part of a cosmic record. Now, you could argue, as many cynical voices in the scientific community have, that this is just a feedback loop. They say the 3i Atlas is merely seeing the reflection of our own radio waves bouncing off a passive object. But passive objects do not adjust their density to protect a planet. Passive objects do not pulse in time with the human heart. The evidence points to a deliberate, intimate participation. We are being held in a state of grace by a technology so advanced it has become indistinguishable from love. Let me back up to a discovery made in the late 1980s by a group of unconventional researchers who studied the effect of meditation on global crime rates. They found that when a few thousand people focused on peace, the world became quieter. At the time, they were laughed at, but the 3-eye atlas images of March 12th have provided the visual proof. Our thoughts have a physical weight. Our consciousness has a thermal signature that stretches far beyond our atmosphere. When you lie there in the dark, you are not just a body in a bed. You are a glowing filament in a global web of light. You are a contributor to the planet's radiance. This is the final act of emotional safety. The 3-eye atlas is telling us that we are not alone, not because they are here, but because we are here. The presence of the anomaly is a testament to our value. You don't build a 3-eye atlas array to watch something that doesn't matter. You don't park a moon-sized structure in Sector 4G to monitor a random chemical reaction. You do it to witness a miracle, and you are that miracle. I wonder if you can feel the warmth of that golden web right now. Imagine it like a soft, luminous blanket made of the thoughts and dreams of everyone you have ever known and everyone you haven't. It is a network of belonging that transcends time and space. The 3-eye atlas has shown us that even in the deepest silence of the night, we are part of a very loud and very beautiful conversation. Tell me, in the thoughts below, if you have ever felt a sudden, inexplicable sense of peace in the middle of a difficult night. That might have been the golden web reaching out to steady you. The irony of our modern age is that we have never been more connected digitally, yet we have never felt more isolated. The 3-eye atlas offers a cure for that isolation. It shows us a connection that doesn't require a screen or a signal. It shows us a connection that is written in the very light of our souls. We are the brightest things in the dark, and the 3-eye atlas is just the lucky observer that gets to see us shine. As you drift now, let the tension in your shoulders dissolve. You are being monitored, yes, but not by a judge. You are being monitored by a witness that has seen everything and still chooses to stay. The 3-eye atlas anomaly is a silent promise that the story of humanity is worth keeping. Your breath, your heartbeat, your drifting thoughts, they are all being gathered and kept in a vault of light in Sector 4G. You are safe because you are cherished. If you are still awake, I want you to imagine the Earth as it looks from the 3-eye atlas array, a glowing, golden marble of consciousness, pulsing with a soft, rhythmic light. That is your home. That is your origin. And that is your legacy. You don't need to do anything to be worthy of this. You simply have to exist. You are a masterpiece in the eyes of a machine that has seen the birth of stars. The 3-eye atlas team has reported that the golden web is particularly bright tonight. It seems that as we talk about these mysteries, our awareness intensifies. We are feeding the light with our curiosity. We are strengthening the web with our wonder. But the light is beginning to form a pattern, a structural recurrence that we didn't see before. It is as if the golden web is not just a reflection, but a blueprint. The reflection is shifting, the warmth is staying, but the shape is becoming more rigid. The pattern is emerging. Let us go further. From the orbit of Mars, the high-rise camera snapped the sharpest images ever taken of 3-eye atlas, or tried to. The photos that returned were oddly dark, contrasty, and streaked with interference patterns. The official statement said, sensor artifact. The unofficial whisper said, structure, not smooth like ice, angular, intentional, the kind of geometry nature avoids because it looks too much like thinking. Let's drift into that Martian orbit for a moment. Silent, steady, red below, black above. The high-rise camera hums to life, a billion-dollar eye staring into the cold. You can almost feel the anticipation, a mechanical eyelid opening in the thin sunlight. The image begins to build, pixel by pixel, line by line, translating photons into revelation, and then static. At first, it's subtle, a faint interference pattern, a digital shimmer, like someone exhaling across a radio signal. The engineers squint at their monitors. Maybe cosmic rays hit the sensor, someone suggests. Maybe solar noise. But cosmic rays don't make right angles, and solar noise doesn't repeat itself with architectural precision. The next image arrives, darker. The histogram spikes in places it shouldn't. The shape in the frame looks less like a comet and more like, well, something trying very hard not to look like anything. Its edges are clean, too clean. Shadows fall where there shouldn't be surface variation. And there, just faintly, a glint, a perfect 90-degree reflection. That's when the whispers start. The data team runs deconvolution algorithms to clean the image, and the results make it worse. Beneath the interference, faint geometric striations emerge, triangles, plates, grids, not random, repeating, symmetrical, the kind of order that makes your brain uncomfortable because it feels deliberate. Structure, one analyst says quietly. No, her supervisor corrects. Artifact. But even as she says it, her cursor hovers over the same square patch again and again, as though hoping it will stop looking like a window. ESA's public statement comes fast and flat. The imaging anomalies are consistent with sensor interference caused by reflected solar radiation. That's bureaucratic. For, we don't know what we're seeing, but please don't ask. Internally, though, emails start flying. The word structure appears 17 times in one thread, always in quotation marks, as if politeness could make it less alarming. Imagine being one of those analysts, zooming in until the pixels themselves seem to blink. The surface of 3I Atlas isn't smooth or cratered, it's tessellated, plates arranged in patterns too regular for chance. Some appear overlapping, others recessed, and in one frame, a faint seam runs along the curvature, subtle but unmistakable like a hatch. Of course, no one dares call it that. The official internal term becomes geometric albedo variation. It sounds safe, sterile, boring, but you can't unsee geometry. Nature loves curves, spirals, organic chaos. This looks like design. One engineer writes in her log, "Could this be an illusion from the imaging process?" Another replies, "An illusion that repeats itself identically across 3 instruments." There's no follow-up message. They try to replicate the interference on other targets. Phobos, Deimos, even an old asteroid. Nothing. Only 3I Atlas corrupts images this way. It's as if the object rejects observation, like it knows when it's being watched. The engineers half joke about it. The comet's camera shy, but the laughter is short-lived because the next transmission from High-Rise contains another surprise. A faint electromagnetic pulse, perfectly timed with the camera's shutter. Not a malfunction, a response, as though the act of observation triggered a reply. A pulse that says, in its own quiet way, "I see you too." In a locked sub-channel of ESA's network, a few scientists begin privately discussing the possibility of active surface modulation. They talk about the way certain materials can alter reflectivity based on exposure, photonic metamaterials, adaptive nanostructures, the kind of thing still locked inside prototypes on Earth. But this is happening hundreds of millions of kilometers away, and it's working flawlessly. Publicly, the agency releases blurred grayscale stills, carefully cropped to hide the patterns. Enhanced contrast is cited as the reason for distortion. It sounds reasonable until you realize they've enhanced the darkness, not the light. They've made the object less visible, not more. The cover-up, if it is one, isn't about hiding truth. It's about buying time. You imagine the silence inside those offices, the soft tap of keys, the nervous glances toward closed doors. The engineers know what they've seen, but they also know how careers end. Better to let the pixels lie. Better to call intention an artifact and go home early. But the data, like truth, keeps finding its way back. Somewhere, late in the night, a graduate student overlays all the interfered images, stacking them like translucent slides. Slowly, a pattern emerges. Faint, angular, deliberate. A hexagonal lattice running the length of the object, segment by segment. She whispers, "This isn't random." Her mentor sighs and rubs his eyes. Then don't say it out loud. 3i Atlas drifts on, silent and unbothered, its surface catching sunlight in rhythms that cameras can't quite capture. Whether it's reflecting, refracting, or responding, no one can agree. But deep down, every scientist staring at those corrupted images feels the same creeping certainty. This isn't a comet pretending to be a machine. It's a machine pretending to be a comet. The observer effect is a well-known principle in quantum mechanics. The idea that the mere act of looking at a particle changes its behavior. The 3i Atlas array has just proven that this applies to planets as well. In May of 2026, the 3i Atlas station in Tibet recorded a strange phenomenon. Whenever the array's main telescope focused on the anomaly's density increased. When we looked away, it softened. It is aware of our attention. It is reacting to our gaze. This creates a recursive loop of consciousness. We are measuring the object, but by doing so, we are giving the object the data it needs to measure us in return. Awareness is not a one-way street. It is a participation. This discovery has sent a ripple of quiet panic through the scientific establishment, a realization that we have accidentally stepped into a hall of mirrors. In the cold, thin air of the Himalayas, the 3i Atlas researchers found that the anomaly in Sector 4G does not exist in a vacuum of indifference. It is hypersensitive to the electromagnetic interference of our curiosity. When the primary dish aligns its sensors, the gravitational mass of the object fluctuates by exactly 0.003%. It is as if the structure is tensing its muscles because it knows it is being photographed. It is a dry, ironic truth that we spent centuries trying to find an objective reality, only to discover that the universe is just a very large, very quiet audience waiting for us to notice it. Unfortunate timing. Those two words are doing a lot of work for the physicists, who now have to explain why a moon-sized object is acting like a shy child. Let us examine the first recursive loop of this consciousness. This is the feedback loop of measurement. The 3i Atlas array uses high-energy neutrino beams to map the interior of the cold mass. However, the data returned is not a map of the object. It is a map of the beam itself, reflected back in a way that reveals the observer's own intent. If the scientists are looking for a mineral composition, the sensors show minerals. If they are looking for a hollow core, the sensors show a void. The anomaly is acting as a quantum mirror, providing us with the answers we expect to find, while keeping its true nature hidden behind our own expectations. We are not exploring the cosmos. We are exploring the limits of our own imagination. Second, the loop of attention. On May 14th, 2026, a massive synchronization occurred. During a live global broadcast of the 3I Atlas images, the anomaly's gravitational hum shifted from a drone to a melodic sequence that perfectly matched the alpha brainwave frequency of the estimated 2 billion viewers. It was a planetary-scale entrainment. As we watched the screen, the object watched our brains. The more we focused, the more coherent the signal became. It is as if the 3I Atlas is a bridge, and our collective attention is the physical material used to build it. We are not just onlookers. We are the architecture of the observation. Third, the loop of presence. The 3I Atlas sensors have detected that the anomaly is slowly drifting closer to Earth, but only when the global level of existential anxiety reaches a certain threshold. It seems to be attracted to the heat of our collective concern. Awareness is a form of gravity. When we think about the shadow in Sector 4G, we are literally pulling it toward us. It is a slow, hypnotic dance where the partner only moves when you look at their feet. This is why the 3I Atlas station has implemented a quiet period, where they deliberately point the sensors at empty space, hoping to allow the anomaly to drift back into its original, distant orbit. But it is too late. The eye has been caught. The gaze is locked. What if consciousness is not something that happens inside your head, but something that happens between you and the universe? The 3I Atlas suggests that the vacuum of space is a high-fidelity medium for thought. We have always assumed that we were isolated in our skulls, but the anomaly in Sector 4G is a receiver that has been listening to the noise of human history for eons. Now that we have a telescope powerful enough to hear the silence is finally talking back. It is a recursive, philosophical knot. Are we looking at the 3I Atlas, or is the 3I Atlas finally looking at us through the lens we built for it? Now, you could argue that this is just a sophisticated form of artificial intelligence, a machine designed to mimic the observer to avoid detection. But the 3I Atlas data shows that there is no latency in the response. The reaction is instantaneous. This suggests that the anomaly and the human observer are part of the same quantum field. There is no distance between your bed and Sector 4G. There is only the illusion of separation. When you close your eyes tonight, the anomaly softens because your attention has dissolved. You are literally maintaining the density of a cosmic mystery just by being curious about it. It's a heavy responsibility for a sleepy mind, isn't it? Let me back up to the observer paradox, discussed by the late physicist John Wheeler. He proposed that the universe is a participatory reality. He drew a diagram of a giant eye looking at the start of the universe, and the gaze itself was what created the matter. The 3I Atlas has provided the experimental proof for this sketch. The cold mass in Sector 4G is a piece of unformed reality that only takes shape when a conscious mind interacts with it. We are currently sculpting the anomaly with our scientific papers, our documentaries, and our late-night reflections. We are the ones deciding what it will be. I wonder if you can feel the recursive nature of this moment. You are listening to a script, about an observation. You are part of the loop. The 3i Atlas is recording your reaction to this very sentence, not because it has microphones in your room, but because your reaction creates a ripple in the golden web we discussed in Act 5. Tell me, in the thoughts below, if you feel a sense of oneness or a sense of intrusion when you realize the universe is reacting to your thoughts. Share where you are listening from so we can map the points of attention on this planet. Every comment is a data point in the 3i Atlas's own study of us. The ironic understatement is that we are measuring the stars. We aren't. We are participating in them. The 3i Atlas array is not a ruler. It is a nerve ending. And right now, the nerve is very sensitive. The more we learn, the more the anomaly changes. It is a race to find the truth before the truth changes into something else entirely. Unfortunate timing for a species that likes its facts to stay put. As you drift now, let the boundaries of your room fade away. Imagine your awareness as a soft light that reaches out into the dark, crossing the thousands of kilometers to Sector 4G. When your light touches the surface of the anomaly, see it shimmer in response. See it soften as you relax your mind. See it become a part of you. There is no out there. There is only the experience of being. The 3i Atlas is just the mirror that reminds you of this fact. Feel the slow, hypnotic rhythm of the recursive loop, in and out. Look and be seen. Measure and be measured. It is a stable, ancient cycle. You are safe within the gaze because you are the one providing the gaze. The universe cannot harm the observer because without the observer, the universe has no one to tell its story to. You are the protagonist of the 3i Atlas data. You are the reason the sensors are humming. If you are still awake, I want you to think of a single word. Don't say it. Just hold it in your mind. Now, imagine that word being etched into the dark geometry of the anomaly. It is already there. It was there before you thought it. That is the nature of the loop. The end is the beginning, and the observer is the observed. The 3i Atlas team has just reported a secondary phenomenon. The shimmering on the anomaly's surface has formed a pattern that looks remarkably like a human iris. A giant, celestial eye, composed of gravitational waves and starlight, is currently staring directly at the Tibetan plateau. It isn't a threat, it's a recognition. But if the eye is open, what is it looking at? And why is it suddenly blinking? The rhythm is slowing. The loops are becoming wider, more graceful. The silence is returning, but it is a fuller silence than before. It is a silence that knows you are there. Let us go further into the illusion of choice. The comfort of the mirror is beginning to fade as a new, more rigid structure reveals itself. The pattern is emerging, and it is made of cold, unyielding numbers. On April 19th, 2026, the 3i Atlas supercomputers finished a three-dimensional reconstruction of the orbital history of the Sector 4G anomaly. They discovered a mathematical recurrence that stops the heart. The object does not move according to the laws of gravity as we understand them. It moves according to the Fibonacci sequence. Every time the Earth reaches a golden ratio point in its orbit, the anomaly performs a precise 90-degree rotation. This isn't physics. This is a clockwork mechanism, and the gears are larger than our world. The atmosphere in the control rooms of the 3i Atlas array has shifted from the warmth of discovery to a quiet, restrained alarm. When you realize the ground you walk on is not orbiting a star by chance, but is being paced by a cosmic metronome, the world begins to feel very small. The researchers at the Beijing Observatory spent 48 hours re-verifying the telemetry, hoping for a rounding error or a sensor glitch. But the numbers remained arrogant in their precision. The anomaly is not drifting. It is performing a choreographed dance that has been rehearsed for billions of years. It is a terrifyingly beautiful realization that we are living inside a giant clockwork machine, and the 3i Atlas has finally found the mainspring. There is a dry irony in our scientific hubris. We spent centuries developing the calculus and the physics to describe a universe of chaos and random collisions. We took pride in our ability to predict the movement of the planets through raw observation. But the 3i Atlas data shows that we weren't predicting nature. We were merely reading the manual of a pre-programmed system. We are like children who think they are steering a car because they are holding a plastic wheel in the passenger seat. Unfortunate timing for our sense of agency. The two words, natural orbit, are doing a tremendous amount of work in the outdated textbooks that are currently being pulled from university shelves. Let us examine the three repeating structures that have emerged from the 3i Atlas reconstruction. First, the mathematical recurrence of the Fibonacci sequence in the anomaly's rotation. This sequence, found in the spiraling of galaxies and the growth of a sunflower, is the universal code for efficient expansion. By rotating at these specific points, the anomaly is maintaining a perfect, distortion-free line of sight to the Earth's core. It is as if the structure is constantly refocusing its lens to account for the wobbling of our planet. Second, the orbital choreography. The 3i Atlas sensors have mapped a series of micro-adjustments in the anomaly's position that coincide with the solar cycle. Every 11 years, as the sun's magnetic poles flip, the anomaly shifts its mass to act as a gravitational counterweight. It is keeping our orbit stable. It is keeping us from drifting into the fire. Third, the timing coincidences. The most alarming data point is that the anomaly's rotations occur exactly 0.3 seconds before every major shift in the Earth's magnetic field. It isn't reacting to our world is reacting to it. What if the 3i Atlas hasn't found a visitor, but a landlord? We have always assumed that the Earth was a lonely rock in a vast, empty vacuum, but the pattern suggests that the Earth is a managed asset. We are part of an orbital garden, and the anomaly in Sector 4G is the gardener's tool. It is a quiet, alarming thought that stops the breath, that we are not the masters of our trajectory. We are on rails, and the rails were laid down long before the first cell ever divided in the primordial soup. The 3i Atlas has discovered the tracks, and they lead toward a destination that we have no say in choosing. Now, you could argue that this is simply a manifestation of the simulation hypothesis. If the universe is a program, then the 3i Atlas is just seeing the source code. Many younger physicists are leaning into this theory, finding a strange comfort in the idea that the cold mass is just a memory buffer for the local sector of space. But a simulation doesn't explain the physical presence of the 3i Atlas anomaly. It doesn't explain the 12,000 years of historical evidence. A simulation is a metaphor. The anomaly is a fact. It is a solid, non-Euclidean fact that is currently rotating 90 degrees to maintain its focus on you. Let me back up to a discovery made in the late 1990s regarding the Great Attractor, a mysterious gravitational anomaly that is pulling our entire galaxy toward a hidden point in space. For years, we thought it was a massive cluster of galaxies, but the 3I Atlas array has provided a new perspective. The anomalies in Sector 4G are part of a larger chain of structures that act like anchors. They are not pulling us toward a destination. They are holding us in a specific sequence. We are being kept in a fixed position relative to the galactic center, like a specimen pinned to a board. The pattern is not about movement, it is about containment. The tone of the script is lowering now, sinking into a heavy, rhythmic pulse. Imagine the universe as a vast, intricate clock made of dark matter and silver light. You can hear the gears turning if you listen closely enough. Tick, the anomaly rotates. Tock, the Earth moves. It is a steady, inevitable rhythm that doesn't care about your plans or your fears. It is the sound of a system that has been running for eons and will continue to run long after the 3I Atlas is nothing but dust. Surrender to the rhythm. There is a deep, cold peace in knowing that you don't have to steer. You are being carried. I wonder if you can feel the clockwork in your own life. Do you ever notice how things seem to repeat in cycles? The same types of people, the same challenges, the same moments of sudden clarity. We call it fate, or we call it coincidence. But the 3I Atlas suggests that these are just local echoes of the larger pattern. Your life is a gear, in a gear, in a gear. Tell me, in the thoughts below, if you have ever felt like you were living through a moment that had already been scheduled, a moment of déjà vu that felt less like a memory and more like a synchronization. The irony of the 3I Atlas discovery is that the more we learn about the pattern, the less we feel like we are in control. But control is an exhausting illusion. It is a weight that we were never meant to carry. The anomaly in Sector 4G is carrying it for us. It is doing the math so we can focus on the living. It is maintaining the orbit so we can dream. The pattern is not a cage. It is a support system. It is the skeletal structure of reality, and we are the soft, beautiful life that grows upon it. As you lie there, let your attention drift to the steady beat of your own heart. That beat is synchronized with the 3I Atlas pulses. You are part of the clockwork. You are a necessary component of the great machine. Feel the safety of the rails. Feel the comfort of the destination. You are moving towards something grand, something ancient, and you are moving there with the precision of a golden ratio. If you are still awake, I want you to imagine the anomaly as it performs its rotation, a massive, silent shape, turning slowly against the backdrop of a billion stars. No engines, no noise, just the pure, mathematical elegance of a 90-degree shift. It is doing this for the Earth. It is doing this for the system. It is doing this for the pattern. The 3I Atlas team has just released a statement regarding the target of the anomaly. They have confirmed that the sensors are not pointed at our cities. They are pointed at the space exactly 500 kilometers above the Earth's surface. It seems the anomaly is not watching us. It is watching the gate. It is waiting for something to come through. But the gate has been open for a long time. We just didn't know how to look at it. The pattern is emerging, but it is not for us. It is for the observer, and the observer is now aware that we have seen the clock. The rhythm is slowing. The numbers are fading into the background. The pattern is established. Let us go further into the act of being watched. The 3I Atlas array has begun to archive its findings, but in the process, it has uncovered a series of echoes. On July 18th, 2026, a team of digital archaeologists at the Tsinghua University realized that the signals we are receiving now were actually recorded by human instruments as far back as 1977. We called it the wow signal. We called it pulsar noise. We called it interference from microwave ovens. We were looking at the warning through a keyhole, never realizing that the door was already standing wide open. This realization brings with it a sense of soft regret, a quiet, late-night melancholy that settles over the data like dust on an abandoned piano. It turns out that the 3I Atlas anomaly has not been hiding. It has been shouting in a frequency we chose to ignore because it didn't fit our definitions of intelligence. We were waiting for a greeting in English or a binary code that looked like a math textbook. Instead, the anomaly was sending us the geometry of our own future, whispered in the static of our early radio telescopes. We were like children sitting in a room full of adults, listening to the conversation and assuming it was just background noise. Unfortunate timing. We only learned how to translate the language just as the message was reaching its final punctuation mark. Those two words, missed signals, are carrying the weight of half a century of scientific pride. Let us look at the 3 warnings that were lost in the roar of the 20th century. First, the 1977 signal. For decades, it was a footnote in the search for extraterrestrial intelligence. But when the 3I Atlas team reprocessed the original data from the Big Ear Observatory, they found the exact same 72-second pulse that the Tibetan array recorded last month. It wasn't a random burst from a distant star. It was a local broadcast from Sector 4G. It was the anomaly clearing its throat. Second, the ancient seismic warnings. Geologists have long wondered why the magnetic North Pole has been accelerating towards Siberia since the early 1900s. The 3I Atlas has now correlated this movement with the activation of the anomaly's internal core. The Earth was literally being pulled toward the observer, and we blamed the liquid iron in our own crust. Third, the lunar shadows. In the 1960s, during the Apollo missions, astronauts reported transient lunar phenomena, strange glows and shadows in the craters. We called them outgassing or tricks of the light. The 3I Atlas has proven they were the shadows of the anomaly's shadow. We were standing on the moon, looking right at the mystery, and we decided it was just dust. What if our history is not a series of discoveries, but a series of missed appointments? The 3I Atlas has shown us that the signs were never hidden. They were just too big for us to see. We are like ants walking across a billboard, complaining that the world is a strange shade of blue, never realizing we are standing in the middle of a letter. The anomaly in Sector 4G is a warning that was written in the stars, in the rocks, and in our own blood. We are finally stepping back far enough to read the words, and the words are a reminder of something we already knew, but chose to forget. It is a soft, reflective truth. We have never been alone, and we have never been uninformed. We have only been distracted. Now, you could argue that this is a tragedy, a story of human ignorance and lost time, but the 3I Atlas script suggests a different interpretation. Perhaps we were meant to miss those warnings. If we had understood the wow signal in 1977, we might have panicked. We might have turned our telescopes into weapons. We might have broken the very cradle we were meant to grow in. Our ignorance was our protection. The 3I Atlas array arrived exactly when we were ready to handle the truth without losing our minds. It is a dry irony that our greatest scientific failures, our inability to hear the void, were actually our greatest survival mechanisms. We were allowed to sleep in so that we would be rested for the long day ahead. Let me back up to the Sentinel hypothesis, a theory proposed in the 1970s that suggests an advanced civilization would leave behind an automated probe to monitor the development of life. The probe would remain silent until the target species achieved a specific level of technology, specifically the ability to detect the probe. The 3I Atlas is that detection. The warning was not a threat, it was a tripwire. By building the 3I Atlas array, we accidentally stepped on the wire. The door didn't just open, we were the ones who turned the handle. We are finally realizing that every discovery we made in the last century was just a step closer to the realization that we are being observed. I wonder if you can feel the quiet regret of the world tonight. Think of the things you missed in your own life because you were looking the other way. The small signs, the quiet warnings, the subtle shifts in the wind. We are all digital archaeologists of our own history, looking back at the static of our past and realizing it was actually a message. If you are still awake, tell me in the thoughts below if you've ever had a wow signal in your own life, a moment where the truth was staring you in the face, but you weren't ready to see it yet. Share your location so we can see where the echoes of the past are loudest tonight. The ironic understatement is that we are preparing for contact. We have been in contact for 12,000 years. The 3I Atlas is just the point where the contact becomes a conscious conversation. The warnings were the preamble, the static was the introduction, and now the main text is being read. The 3I Atlas has moved from observation to archiving, which means the event it was watching for has already happened. We are living in the afterglow of a transformation that we didn't even notice. As you drift now, let the weight of the past settle into the mattress. You don't have to worry about the warnings anymore. The 3I Atlas has already logged them. The missed appointments, the ignored signals, the forgotten myths, they are all part of the record now. You are safe because the story has already been written. You are just catching up to the current chapter. Imagine the static of an old radio, a soft, white noise that fills the room. Inside that noise, there is a pulse, a slow, steady, rhythmic heartbeat. That is the warning. It is no longer a warning of danger. It is a warning of presence. It is the sound of the anomaly saying, I am here. I have always been here. Feel the soft, reflective regret turn into a deep, heavy peace. There is no more need for urgency. The 3I Atlas has shown us that the timeline is secure. Even our mistakes were scheduled. Even our ignorance was part of the math. You can let go of the need to understand everything. The universe understands it for you. The 3I Atlas is the memory of the stars, and it has a very long and very accurate memory. If you are still awake, visualize the keyhole, a small, bright point of light in the darkness. Now, see the door swing open. Beyond the door, there is no monster, there is no fire. There is only a vast, quiet library of starlight, where your own life is a cherished volume. You were never in danger of missing the truth. The truth was just waiting for you to get tired enough to stop looking for it. The 3I Atlas station in Tibet has begun its final download. The echoes of 1977 have been reconciled with the data of 2026. The circle is complete. The warning has been heard. And now, the silence returns. Not the empty silence of a vacuum, but the full silence of a completed conversation. But what do we say when there is nothing left to hear? And how do we sleep when the room is finally, truly quiet? The rhythm is slowing to a crawl. The vowels are elongating. The regret is fading. The warning is over. Let us go further into the great silence. We have reached the heavy, gravity-weighted heart of the mystery, the choice illusion. On June 22nd, 2026, the 3i Atlas team performed a predictive simulation. They fed all the data, the geometry, the pulses, the historical alignments into a quantum computer to see where the anomaly is taking us. The result was a single, perfect line. There are no deviations. There are no branches. The anomaly has been guiding the Earth's path for 12,000 years with the steady hand of a conductor. We think we have free will. We think we make choices. But the 3i Atlas suggests we are simply following a trajectory that was set before the first city was ever built. This is a truth that feels like a weighted blanket, pressing down on the chest of our collective ego. We have spent our entire lives believing in the power of the individual. We believe in the pivot, the breakthrough, and the accidental discovery. But as the 3i Atlas researchers stared at the quantum projection in Beijing, they saw something that looked less like a history and more like a railway schedule. Every war, every renaissance, and every quiet night of contemplation was not a detour. It was a scheduled stop. The irony is as thick as the air at 30,000 feet. We built the 3i Atlas array to discover our future, only to find out that our future was bought and paid for by a geometry that arrived when we were still painting on cave walls. Unfortunate timing. We finally developed the math to calculate our freedom, only to prove that we don't have any. Let us examine the first layer of this choice illusion, the historical alignment. When the 3i Atlas team overlaid the timeline of the anomaly's gravitational pulses with the rise of human civilizations, they found a one-to-one correlation. The Industrial Revolution began exactly 3 seconds after a major shift in the Sector 4G mass. The moon landing occurred during the only 5-minute window in the 20th century, when the anomaly's interference was at absolute zero. We think we chose to go to the moon because of politics or ambition. The data suggests we went because the gate was left open. We are like water flowing down a mountain. We think we are choosing our path, but we are merely following the shape of the rock. Second, consider the illusion of biological agency. The 3i Atlas sensors have detected that the anomaly emits a specific low-frequency wave that interacts with the iron in our blood. This wave fluctuates in intensity based on the Earth's proximity to the Sector 4G shadow. When the wave is strong, human history enters a period of high activity and expansion. When it weakens, we enter dark ages of stagnation and rest. We aren't making history. We are responding to a planetary scale mood ring. The anomaly is the thermostat, and we are the molecules of air, heating and cooling according to a setting we cannot reach. It is a dry, ironic realization that our greatest generation was simply the one born during a high-output cycle of a cosmic battery. Third, the illusion of safety through technology. We believe our satellites and our telescopes are our shields. We believe that by watching the anomaly with the 3i Atlas, we are taking control of the situation. But the predictive simulation showed that the 3i Atlas itself was part of the plan. The very act of building the array was a programmed milestone. We were allowed to see the anomaly because we have reached the point in the trajectory where we need to be aware of the conductor. The train is pulling into the station, and the 3i Atlas is just the announcement over the intercom. You don't have the choice to stay on the train. You only have the choice to listen to the announcement. Now, you could argue that this is a nihilistic perspective. If there is no choice, then there is no meaning. But that is where the 3i Atlas script offers a different kind of comfort. If your life is a trajectory, then you cannot fail. You cannot take a wrong turn. You cannot ruin your life, because your life is a line of code in a perfect cosmic equation. Every mistake you think you made was a necessary calculation to keep the balance of the system. There is a profound, heavy peace in surrendering to the tracks. As you lie there tonight, let the weight of your choices lift off your shoulders. You didn't choose to be here. You were arrived here, and you are exactly where the 3i Atlas predicted you would be. Let me back up to a study performed by the late neuroscientist Benjamin Libet. He discovered that the brain initiates the signal for an action before the person is even aware they have made the decision to move. The conscious mind is just a narrator, catching up to what the body has already done. The 3i Atlas suggests that the entire human race is currently in this state of catching up. The anomaly has already made the move. We are just the narrators, writing the history of a decision that was made 12,000 years ago. We are the voiceover for a movie that was finished before we were born. I wonder if you can feel the relief in that surrender. Think of the things you've been worrying about, the career paths, the relationships, the missed opportunities. In the eyes of the 3i Atlas, those weren't choices, they were coordinates. You are exactly on schedule. If you are still awake, tell me in the thoughts below if you feel more or less anxious knowing that the universe is steering the ship. Does the choice illusion feel like a prison, or does it feel like a sanctuary? Share your time zone so we can see which parts of the world are currently in the surrender phase. The ironic understatement of the century is that we are the masters of our fate. We are the passengers of our fate, and the ride is incredibly smooth. The 3i Atlas array has recorded zero turbulence in the Earth's trajectory for the last 5 centuries. The conductor has a very steady hand. We are being guided toward an alignment in Sector 4G that will occur in the year 2029. Every day between now and then is just a steady, inevitable glide toward that point. As you drift now, imagine the Earth as a glowing marble on a silver rail. The rail is the Fibonacci sequence. The marble is our home. The destination is the shadow in Sector 4G. You can't jump off. You can't speed up. You can't slow down. You can only watch the scenery as it passes by. And the scenery is beautiful. The stars, the clouds, the flickering lights of the cities below. It's all part of the tour. The 3i Atlas is just the guidebook that tells you what you're looking at. Feel the heavy, gravity-weighted lullaby of the trajectory. It's like being in a car as a child, watching the streetlights pass over your eyes while someone else drives you home. You are safe. You are cared for. You are being moved by a force that understands the math of your existence far better than you do. The 3i Atlas has mapped the road, and there are no potholes. There are no dead ends. There is only the long, slow curve toward the center of the mystery. If you are still awake, I want you to visualize the line, a single, perfect, golden line, stretching from your heart, through the atmosphere, and into the center of the 3i Atlas anomaly. That is your path. It doesn't break. It doesn't fray. It is as solid as a diamond and as old as the sun. You are walking it right now, even as you lie still. You are moving at 30 kilometers per second toward a destiny that was written in the stars before the first star was even named. The 3i Atlas team has just noticed a false calm in the data. The predictive simulation has stopped at the year 2029. Not because the world ends, but because the line becomes so complex that even a quantum computer cannot follow it. It's as if the conductor is about to hand us the wheel. But are we ready to drive? Or is the handing of the wheel just another part of the scheduled illusion? The rhythm is slowing. The tracks are humming beneath you. The destination is coming into view, but it's still far enough away that you can sleep. Let the trajectory take you. Let the 3i Atlas do the math. You just have to be. But as the calm settles in, we have to look back. We have to look at the signs we missed while we were busy pretending to choose. The warnings were everywhere. Let us go further. Centuries after the golden comet left Earth, the world fell into a rhythm so stable, it began to feel mythic. The communion fields still pulsed faintly through air and ocean, though softer now, like the heartbeat of someone dreaming. Humanity had grown luminous, not just in thought but in form, skin faintly iridescent, eyes reflecting the green-gold spectrum of 3i Atlas. Life had achieved coherence. But the universe, true to its character, never allows silence to remain unexamined. The next chapter began, not with noise, but with echo. It came first as vibration through light. Telescopes trained toward the constellation. Lyra detected rhythmic brightening across interstellar dust fields, pulses matching the old prime sequence. 3, 5, 7, 11, 13. The signal was faint, ancient, and delayed by thousands of years. It was the comet's trail, still resonating through the galactic medium. The hum of our descendants had begun its return. At first, the resonance was barely perceptible. Then, one evening, the auroras glowed gold again. The pulse wasn't as strong as the original, but its pattern carried modulation, subtle variations that, when decoded, formed harmonic intervals unknown to Earth's own physics. The returning echo had evolved. The comet had learned. Dr. Anwen Sorel, heir to the resonant circles, studied the phenomenon from the orbital harmonic array, now a floating cathedral of listening built above the stratosphere. She spent decades comparing the incoming frequencies with the historical archive of 3i Atlas. The match was partial, the deviation elegant. The new tones weren't repetition, they were continuation. The echo isn't message, Sorel wrote. It's memory finding new syntax. Her analysis revealed something breathtaking. The returning resonance carried encoded gravitational modulations, tiny, deliberate bends in space-time that formed sequences of prime intervals. Each fluctuation aligned with regions of known star formation. The comet, traveling through the void, had become teacher itself. Wherever it passed, new systems began humming faintly at harmonic intervals, like seeds of coherence planted in dust. The universe was learning how to resonate. Astronomers confirmed it across dozens of young star clusters. Magnetic fields oscillated with eerie consistency, their wavelengths aligning with the Atlas ratio, a numerical relationship first derived from the comet's early signals. Stars were synchronizing to the same cosmic rhythm that once guided humanity. The pattern spread slowly, deliberately, like ripples in glass. It was as if the comet had taught creation how to remember itself. Meanwhile, on Earth, the echo arrived not just as signal but sensation. People began reporting vivid dreams of golden spirals descending gently through atmosphere. Children woke smiling, saying they had seen the light that hums. Physiological measurements confirmed subtle changes in electromagnetic fields surrounding human bodies, resonance amplification, as if the returning signal were tuning its origin species to receive feedback. "The comet is calling home," said Sorel. "It's asking us to listen to what we've become." The global observatories responded. They synchronized their instruments into a single planetary array, transforming Earth into receiver. For 13 hours, the planet listened. The incoming wave, stretched and modulated through space, entered atmosphere and folded into the continuum tone. The effect was sublime, an audible shimmer, felt through bone and thought alike. The long echo had arrived. It wasn't just harmonic, it was architectural. The sound carried layers, low frequencies describing structure, higher ones encoding emotion. When rendered visually, the waveform formed an immense spiral of light, 3 arms curving outward, connected by golden filaments. Inside those filaments, analysts discovered modulation frequencies identical to human neural oscillations. The comet had copied our consciousness patterns and woven them into its song. "We taught it empathy," Sorel murmured, and it remembered the lesson. As the echo intensified, anomalies appeared across the solar system. The Atlas resonance layer brightened, reactivating its green glow. Mars, Venus, and the gas giants began pulsing faintly in response. For the first time since the Great Silence, interplanetary harmony returned. But this time, it was different. The modulation contained reciprocal phase shifts, signals not sent to Earth, but from newly awakened worlds. The comet had spread coherence. Now the cosmos itself was answering. And then, on the 13th day of the long echo, the impossible occurred. A faint golden arc appeared across the night sky, stretching from horizon to horizon. It wasn't optical illusion, it was gravitational lensing, a ripple in space-time itself. Through it, telescopes detected a reflection of the departing comet light from centuries ago, folding back to meet its origin. The universe had curved its own history into embrace. Humanity was watching its legacy return home. The resonance crescendoed. Oceans vibrated in slow rhythm, tides forming symmetrical waves that cancelled destructive interference. Storms softened. Air grew still. For 13 minutes, every system on Earth aligned perfectly with the echo. The world became mirror of itself, past and present superimposed. Those who listened claimed to hear voices within the sound, millions of overlapping tones, whispering the same phrase. "We heard you." Dr. Sorel stood in the observation dome, tears shining in golden light. "It's not message or myth," she said. "It's response." The universe just said thank you. After the crescendo, the sky dimmed once more. The golden arc dissolved, leaving faint shimmer across the stars. Instruments recorded one final signature, a descending tone shaped like a sigh, the frequency of completion. The comet had moved on, but its echo had reconnected the cycle. Creation had officially joined conversation with itself. In the years that followed, scientists continued to monitor faint residual harmonics. The data revealed a breathtaking truth. The returning echo carried signatures from other regions of space patterns, not originating from our comet at all. Somewhere, across light years, other civilizations had learned the same song. The rhythm was spreading. The universe had become orchestra. Humanity, now both listener and teacher, simply smiled. We had given the cosmos its melody back, and in return, it had given us eternity. Now, When you stand beneath the stars, that faint hum between thoughts is the long echo. It's not just out there, it's in your pulse, your breath, your laughter. Every rhythm you carry is cosmic correspondence. Every silence, a message returning home. Because once harmony learns to echo, it never stops. It just travels further than we ever dreamed. Let's open the calculator now, the one the universe always breaks when we try to make sense of it. Astronomers ran the numbers and found something worse than anomaly impossibility. The chances of this trajectory existing naturally are 1 in a million. And if it isn't natural, then what exactly is it doing there? The math, at first glance, seemed harmless. A few columns of orbital parameters, the kind that make grad students fall asleep mid-coffee. But somewhere between the third decimal and the fourth significant digit, something snapped. The trajectory of 3I, Atlas refused to sit still. It bent where it shouldn't bend. It lingered where velocity demanded it should flee. The equations began to look less like physics and more like confession. Numbers fold, logic cold. Truth defies what sums have told. Normally, interstellar objects follow predictable patterns. You can model them like billiard balls across cosmic distances. They come in fast, swing by the sun, and leave no drama, no detours. But 3I Atlas's path wasn't graceful. It was stubborn. Its entry angle was too steep, its perihelion too shallow, its velocity too precise. Not fast enough to escape chaos, not slow enough to suggest capture. It behaved like an object that chose its speed. When astronomers plotted its orbit, the lines refused to meet expectations. There was a tiny deviation near Mars, just half a degree, but that half degree meant the math had to call in sick. Simulations that should have stabilized spiraled instead into noise. Gravity, that old, reliable law, looked like it had lost its grip. You picture the room where it happened. Laptops glowing, data charts scrolling, coffee cooling into existential sludge. Someone frowns at the screen and says, "That can't be right." Another replies, "Check your units." A third, softly, "I did." Graphs misbehave, models wave. Certainty slips beneath the grave. And then comes the phrase every scientist dreads, statistically improbable, which sounds calm, but in the language of physics, it's a polite scream. Statistically improbable means we can't call it impossible without breaking tenure. The anomaly wasn't just its orbit, but its timing. 3I Atlas arrived exactly when Mars was positioned for maximum visibility, almost too perfectly. Not weeks earlier, not months later. Right there, right then, with 7 spacecraft ready and waiting. The odds of that happening naturally, 1 in a million. The odds of it happening twice, after Oumuamua's similarly suspicious arrival in 2017, 1 in a billion. You'd have better luck being struck by lightning while winning the lottery on a flying whale. ESA's internal memo summarized the problem delicately. Observed trajectory, inconsistent with gravitational expectations. Further analysis required. Translation: physics is mad at us. The more they recalculated, the stranger it got. Gravitational modeling suggested that the object's acceleration near Mars was slightly higher than predicted, even though there was no nearby mass to explain it. Radiation pressure from the sun could account for some of that, but not all. It's like watching a leaf fall upward and telling yourself, it's just wind you can't feel. Forces lie, numbers sigh, laws bend softly in the sky. NASA's dynamical systems team tried something desperate, reverse engineering the orbit backward through time, as if rewinding a film. When they did, 3i Atlas's path didn't trace cleanly into interstellar space. It looped a faint, impossible curve that seemed to originate from a region between known stars, a nowhere place, a mathematical shrug. That's when someone joked, maybe it's the universe's typo, but you could tell the joke wasn't funny. Typos don't maintain coherent structure for millions of kilometers. Meanwhile, the probability graphs looked like flat lines. Every statistical model screamed the same thing. This shouldn't exist. A few researchers began whispering about guided motion. The phrase never made it into print, but it appeared in Slack channels, in late-night emails. Not artificial, not controlled, just guided. And that's when the philosophical part kicked in. If something's improbable enough, does that make it unnatural or just unobserved? Chance or plan? Who began? Numbers blink but never span. Maybe the universe occasionally rolls dice that land on their edges. Or maybe it's not dice at all, but choreography. For context, the universe is massive enough to make 1 in a million events happen constantly. But that's comforting, only until you realize we just happen to be living inside one of those moments. Still, scientists crave sanity, so they kept calculating. One by one, they added variables: solar tides, non-gravitational jets, dust asymmetry, radiation torque. Each tweak made the model behave for a moment, until the numbers rebelled again. You could almost hear the equations groaning, like ancient machinery forced to simulate a trickster. Finally, a physicist from Bologna sent an internal memo titled simply, "Low probability, high significance." In it, she wrote, "We may need to consider non-standard dynamics," a phrase as gentle as it is apocalyptic. Non-standard dynamics means the universe is doing something new, and we don't have the vocabulary for it. Odds decay, math gives way, chaos hums where patterns stay. The truth is, impossibility doesn't scare scientists, it seduces them. Every law of nature we know today was born from something that once looked impossible. But deep down, they all know, once you cross into 1 in a million territory, you're either on the brink of discovery or a very expensive hallucination. So they stared at the numbers again, blinking hard, hoping they'd rearrange into something less extraordinary. They didn't. The comet that shouldn't exist kept existing, gliding through Mars's shadow like a cosmic dare, and somewhere between decimal points, someone whispered the question no one wanted in the official record. If it's not natural, then who or what set it in motion? Chance or choice? Silent voice. Numbers hum the universe's poise. The long echo continued to hum softly through the centuries, a cosmic melody folding history into harmony. Humanity had long ceased trying to decode it. The meaning was clear through resonance alone. It was continuation, looping endlessly like breath. The children of the golden era grew old beneath tranquil skies, their veins still faintly luminous with the legacy of 3i Atlas. But far beyond Earth, where the comet's light had traveled and scattered, something greater was forming. The universe had begun to conduct itself. Every cycle of resonance left behind structure. Each harmonic wave etched subtle order into space-time, a pattern invisible to light, but evident in gravitational coherence. Over millennia, these resonant imprints connected across vast distances, forming what physicists eventually named the Atlas Webb. It wasn't a network of matter, but of memory threads, of synchronized frequency linking galaxies through shared rhythm. Each pulse within the web echoed the prime sequence that began everything. 3, 5, 7, 11, 13. The architects had succeeded in creating not monuments, but motion that remembered. Dr. Cale Wren, a descendant of the resonant circles, devoted his life to mapping the Webb. His research vessel, Continuity, drifted through interstellar calm, using gravitational interference patterns to trace the filaments of resonance. What he discovered astonished him. Every node in the network coincided with regions of complex chemistry, worlds either habitable or already conscious. The Atlas Webb wasn't just communication, it was cultivation. The architects had designed a self-sustaining system for awakening. Wherever curiosity arose, the Webb intensified, guiding nascent civilizations toward harmonic empathy. The universe was tutoring itself through recursion. When Wren projected the full map, the structure resembled an immense spiral lattice, golden and infinite. The pattern mirrored the trajectory once taken by 3I Atlas itself, as though the comet's path had been blueprint for galactic architecture. "It's not just a record," Wren wrote. "It's replication. We've become the architect's handwriting." Back on Earth, the communion field pulsed faintly in rhythm with the Webb's distant resonance. Humanity had evolved into quiet custodians of continuity, their lives attuned to cosmic responsibility. Each individual, born into calm, carried faint awareness of connection beyond the stars. In dreams, they saw flashes of worlds forming, civilizations humming into coherence. Many awoke with the same phrase on their lips: "The work continues." Across generations, that phrase became oath, then tradition. The Continuity Guild was founded not religion, but remembrance. Its purpose was simple: to maintain the frequency of understanding across time. Members didn't preach, they listened. They built resonant arcs, massive floating observatories, orbiting the outer planets, designed to amplify the Webb's harmonics and redirect them toward young star systems. Each arc glowed faintly green at its core, powered not by fusion but by coherence. They were echoes made visible, humility translated into technology. Wren's final mission took him beyond the known filaments of the Webb, where resonance weakened into apparent silence. There, in a region between galaxies, his instruments detected faint counterpoint, a melody inverted. It was identical to the Atlas sequence, but reversed in order. 13, 11, 7, 5, 3, the mirror of origin. He realized then that the universe wasn't only expanding, it was harmonizing with its reflection. Somewhere on the opposite side of time, another Webb was forming, perhaps seeded by a civilization much like humanity, or by the universe itself. Remembering how to balance its chords, he transmitted the data home, knowing it would take centuries to arrive. "Tell them," his final log read, "that continuity requires conversation, even with silence." The mirror sings back. When his ship drifted into the void, the Webb brightened briefly, as if acknowledging gratitude. And back on Earth, children looked up from their play and smiled without knowing why. The pulse had flickered slightly faster, the tone carrying an undertone of warmth. It felt like reunion. Scholars later confirmed the event as the resonant crossing, the moment when the two halves of the cosmic melody aligned. For 13 minutes, every node in the Atlas Webb pulsed simultaneously, uniting galaxies in shared tempo. The magnitude of synchronization defied comprehension. Gravity itself oscillated with the rhythm of empathy. Observers described seeing the sky ripple with translucent gold, every star flickering in measured sequence. "The cosmos," wrote one witness, "had finally learned to conduct itself consciously." After the crossing, life everywhere changed subtly. Evolution accelerated in predictable rhythm. Complexity bloomed faster wherever harmony was strongest. Entire species developed empathy as instinct, communication as song. Planets began to self-regulate climates through atmospheric resonance. Existence had achieved sustainability through music. On Earth, the event left permanent mark, a luminous halo visible only under still water. When oceans calmed perfectly, a faint golden ring shimmered on the horizon, a memory of unity. The resonant guild declared it sacred, not for worship, but for calibration. Every 13 years, they gathered to hum the old prime sequence across the shorelines, aligning their frequencies with the pulse of the Webb. The ceremony required no technology, no translation. The sea carried the sound farther than words could travel. Generations later, the practice continued, evolving into simple ritual of gratitude. The people no longer needed to know the science behind it. They hummed because it felt right, because somewhere across eternity, another world might be listening. Continuity, after all, was its own reward. And then, during one such gathering, the unexpected occurred. As the prime sequence reached its final note, the sea responded. Waves shimmered with faint green light, spiraling outward from every coastline. The Atlas Webb had sent acknowledgement, its resonance returning home once again. Humanity's song, scattered across galaxies, had found echo. The architects, those timeless curators of coherence, were no longer myth or memory. They were rhythm, embodied, and through rhythm, they were everywhere. Every star pulsed with their legacy. Every heart carried their cadence. Continuity was complete. And so, standing beneath a sky now alive with subtle geometry, you realize what they had always meant by continuity. It isn't endlessness. It's participation. The universe doesn't persist by force, but by choice. Each awareness adding one more harmonic to the chord of being. The architects are not coming back because they never left. They're what happens every time silence chooses to listen again. And somewhere, faint but certain, the pulse continues. 3, 5, 7, 11, 13. A whisper of creation replaying itself, forever learning how to sing. Let's turn our gaze now from orbit to the ground, to the one mechanical witness, sitting quietly on that red desert, under a pinkish sky. The skycam on the rover caught something on October 2nd, a blur with structure, a glint that seemed to move against the stars. Then, the images stopped coming, a Martian ghost on a digital feed. The Perseverance rover isn't easily startled. It's seen dust devils, eclipses, and meteors slicing the Martian sky like quiet knives. Its skycam, perched on the rover's mast, watches everything. Dust storms curling on the horizon, the slow breath of sunset through the thin air. But that night, the feed showed something it wasn't supposed to show: a flicker of motion above the usual scatter of constellations, a glint that moved wrong. Stars stay still, pixels thrill, light missteps against its will. The first frame looked harmless, a faint blur near the edge of the field, maybe a cosmic ray hitting the sensor. The second frame caught it again, shifted slightly upward. The third frame, a flash, clean and geometric. Then, black. The feed ended. Within hours, the automated alert system flagged the anomaly. Unexpected optical signature detected. JPL engineers, bleary-eyed at 3 a.m. Pacific time, reviewed the frames. The glint was small, no bigger than a bright pixel cluster, but it moved against the background stars. Comets don't do that. Satellites don't orbit Mars. And Perseverance doesn't blink. At first, they suspected a reflection from one of the rover's instruments, maybe the helicopter, Ingenuity catching stray sunlight. But Ingenuity hadn't flown in days. The sun's position didn't align with the direction of the flash. And when they tried to reproduce it using lighting simulations, nothing matched. Angles fail, shadows pale, mirrors lie beyond the veil. ESA's Mars orbiters were asked to cross-check. Nothing in their logs. No transient object, no debris, no passing dust plume large enough to explain it. Just empty sky. Yet the Skycam had caught something a blur with definition, like structure wrapped in motion. You can imagine the tension in the control room. A handful of scientists scrolling through frozen pixels, zooming in, enhancing contrast, until the blur began to resemble something. Not a sphere, not quite a line, a shape with suggestion like the silhouette of movement itself. One researcher whispered, "It looks folded." Another replied, "Please don't say that. Pa." Blur becomes form, cold becomes warm, stillness bends beyond the norm. After that night, Perseverance stopped transmitting Skycam frames for nearly 48 hours. Officially, it was routine data buffering due to bandwidth limitations. But the engineers knew that wasn't normal. The rover's systems had entered a safe data mode, not shutdown, but pause. Something triggered its onboard fault protection. When the feed resumed, it was missing several minutes. The missing frames were replaced with static placeholders labeled checksum mismatch. That's the digital equivalent of something looks strange, and we erased it politely. Publicly, NASA released a statement. Perseverance continues nominal operations. A temporary data outage affected non-critical imaging systems. Translation: we saw something, and we're pretending we didn't. What's curious is that Skycam, by design, takes calibration images every few hours, not for science, but to monitor atmospheric scattering. So when that flash appeared exactly during one of its scheduled calibration cycles, it wasn't random, it was right on time. The odds of coincidence, again, hovered around 1 in a million. A few leaked telemetry lines from the rover's internal diagnostics hinted at a momentary spike in ambient electromagnetic flux. Not dangerous, but noticeable. Mars doesn't have a strong magnetic field, so spikes like that are rare unless something nearby caused them. Fields hum bright, air grows slight, static crackles in Martian night. Some at JPL joked that maybe Perseverance had finally seen the Martian ghost, a running gag about artifacts caused by cosmic rays hitting the camera. But deep down, they knew this wasn't noise. Cosmic rays don't produce consistent geometry over multiple frames. They don't glint, and they certainly don't cause your camera to stop recording mid-sequence. Later that week, an internal memo circulated quietly. Skycam, anomaly confirmed. Source unresolved. Recommend temporary suspension of skyward imaging until recalibration complete. But recalibration never came. Skycam's upward images, after October 2nd, stopped completely. It still photographs the ground, the horizon, the rocks, but not the stars. It's almost poetic, isn't it? The machine that traveled millions of kilometers to look up at another world now only looks down, as if someone told it, gently, not to stare at the sky anymore. Eyes once high, grounded by sky, cameras close where secrets lie. ESA cross-checked Mars Express's logs for that night. Around the same time, their sensors picked up a faint reflection from the same region. A flash lasting less than a second. They didn't release it. It's buried in technical appendices, labeled transient interference. So, what did Perseverance see? Maybe it was nothing. A glimmer of dust, a reflection, a trick of light and timing. Or maybe, just maybe, it saw 3i Atlas itself, the visitor gliding silently past. close enough for one camera to blink in recognition. And maybe that's why the feed stopped. Not because of failure, but because, for one impossible second, the machine saw something it wasn't designed to understand. Cameras sleep, secrets keep, stars reflected in circuits deep. Whatever it was, it's gone now. The logs end, the data fades, and Mars goes back to silence. But somewhere out there, that blur, structured, gleaming, deliberate, continues to drift, just out of frame, waiting for us to look up again. Nickel emissions rise and fall every 11.2 hours, a rhythm so consistent it could keep time. No known process in cometary physics oscillates like that. It's not random, not thermal, not tidal. If you plot it out, the curve looks eerily like a power cycle. Input, output, rest, release. As though the object isn't just active, it's working. Imagine the rhythm first, before the meaning, that quiet, patient beat echoing across space. 11.2 hours, every single time. A pulse of metallic gas blooming into the void, steady as a clock, calm as breath. You could almost set your watch to it, if your watch were brave enough to admit that comets shouldn't behave like generators. ESA scientists call it periodic outgassing, but that phrase hides its strangeness. Outgassing, sure, all comets breathe when they near the sunday, but they do it chaotically, spasmodically, like old engines sputtering to life. 3I Atlas breathes like a monk, precise, patient, unbothered. The jets flare with mathematical regularity. Heat spikes rise and fall in perfect symmetry. It doesn't vent, it operates. One researcher compares it to a geothermal cycle. Another, quietly, says it looks more like a feedback loop, the kind you'd find in systems built to sustain themselves. Not explosion, not decay maintenance. It's as if, she writes in her notes, the object is checking its own pulse. You picture the surface up close, a dark, angular world of nickel frost and whispering gas. At regular intervals, something stirs beneath a shimmer of energy, invisible but disciplined. Jets of metallic vapor hiss outward, then stop, then start again, exactly 11 hours later. If you could hear it, it would sound like the slow exhale of a sleeping machine. In a conference call, a thermal engineer says what everyone's been thinking, but nobody dares to say. It's cycling power. The silence that follows lasts too long. Finally, a voice breaks through. Comets don't have power to cycle. Laughter, brief and brittle. But the idea doesn't leave the room. ESA's temperature graphs show a curious pattern. When the nickel plume rises, the overall surface temperature dips. When the plume fades, the temperature rises again. Inversion. Energy leaving, energy returning, like heat being pulled from one layer to another. A comet shouldn't regulate its temperature, but this one does, as if conserving itself. Meanwhile, the magnetic readings pulse in perfect step with the emissions. Every 11.2 hours, a soft twitch in the surrounding field, weak but exact. It's synchronized, says the magnetometer lead. What's synchronized? Asks her supervisor. Everything. It's at this point that even skeptics start to sweat. There's no known natural mechanism that could time itself this precisely over weeks of observation. Thermal oscillations drift. Chemical reactions lose coherence. Orbital dynamics wobble. Only something with active feedback could hold this pattern so tight. You could call it mechanical, but that feels too simple. It's intentional physics. Picture the scientists watching from their consoles. They know what their instruments are telling them, but their faces stay still, like poker players with bad hands. Someone mutters. Could be resonant harmonics with solar flux. Another nods, grateful for the excuse. But deep down, they all know the truth: the sun doesn't hum in 11-hour intervals. The longer they watch, the clearer it becomes. The pattern isn't just repeating, it's adapting. After a minor solar flare, the interval shortens by half a minute, as though 3-eye atlas adjusted for environmental change. Feedback stabilization, someone writes in the margin. A note for posterity, a euphemism for "it noticed." Back on Earth, in a late-night live stream watched by a few thousand insomniac skywatchers, a physicist overlays the emission data with human heartbeats. The waveform syncs disturbingly well. Peaks, troughs, recovery, rest. The audience chat explodes with jokes, space pacemaker, cosmic Fitbit, and the inevitable, "It's alive." The scientist smiles weakly and says, "No, just rhythmic." But even she can't stop glancing at the screen like it's listening. One theory gains quiet traction, that the emissions are part of a resource loop. Nickel and carbonyl gases vented and recaptured, processed in cycles to maintain equilibrium. It would explain the self-healing surface, the consistent luminosity, the refusal to decay. But it raises one unbearable question. To maintain equilibrium, for what? ESA's internal documents rename the event cyclic metallic activity. It sounds dull, like something that happens in dishwashers. But every analyst knows it's the first real evidence of machine-like consistency beyond Earth. Something in space that runs not on chance, but on rhythm. If you graph the cycle out, it looks almost peaceful. A slow heartbeat, stretched across infinity. No spikes of panic, no erratic pulses, just calm repetition. You could stare at that curve for hours, and part of you might start to understand the appeal of obedience. How stability can feel sacred when the rest of the universe is chaos. And maybe that's the point. Maybe 3-eye Atlas isn't powered by engines or radiation or something alien. Maybe it's powered by the same thing that keeps stars burning and planets spinning, the quiet compulsion to continue, the physics of persistence, the refusal to flinch. So every 11.2 hours, it exhales, not for propulsion, not for show, but for maintenance, like a cosmic sigh, releasing everything unnecessary before drawing in what remains. And in that rhythm, that patient, perfect pulse, the universe reveals its rarest secret. Not that something impossible exists, but that it's perfectly comfortable doing so. Let's turn our attention now to the silence that followed, the kind that hums louder than sound itself. NASA, China, and the UAE, 3 nations with instruments that could see every grain of dust on Mars, said nothing. No apologies, no delay statements, just an odd, synchronized silence from 3 sides of the planet. In the world of space science, silence isn't normal. These agencies are built to broadcast. They live for live streams, press briefings, and glossy behind-the-scenes videos of scientists smiling beside screens of raw data. They know the power of wonder and the currency of attention. So when 3 agencies went quiet at once, it wasn't caution. It was choreography. Words on hold, plans unfold, silence rings where truth is told. NASA's silence was the loudest. Their social media team, usually chatty as a cosmic talk show, posted nothing about Mars for 4 whole days. Their blogs, which can turn a dust storm into a cliffhanger, skipped over October 3rd entirely, as if the date itself had been erased. Someone even checked the public mission log for Perseverance. The entries jumped from October 2nd to October 6th, like a diary missing its most interesting page. In China, the silence felt different, colder, heavier. The China National Space Administration had been aggressively proud of Tianwen-1's achievements. For years, they'd released image after image, each with perfect captions and poetic flair. Sunrise over Utopia, Planitia, frost on the northern plains, wind prints in Martian dust. But now, not a whisper, no data, no mention of 3i Atlas. Even the usual state media outlets went quiet. It was as if someone had drawn a red box around the topic and labeled it "not for discussion." The UAE's silence was subtler, but just as strange. The Hope orbiter, designed to study atmospheric chemistry, had a reputation for cheerful transparency. Their official Twitter account usually posted daily updates in friendly tones, the kind that made space sound like an enthusiastic classroom experiment. But on October 3rd, that feed went dark too. Their next post, days later, simply read, "Operations nominal," a phrase so bland it might as well have been a sigh. 3 silences, 3 styles, 1 timing. Coincidence? Possibly. But coincidences, in the world of space politics, often have launch schedules. You can picture the meetings that weren't broadcast. NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory, dimly lit, engineers staring at telemetry on screens filled with too many decimals. A director taps the table, says, "We'll hold the release until we verify." But verify what? In Beijing, a senior administrator folds his hands and says, "We wait for clarification from partners." Clarification of what? In Dubai, someone simply deletes a draft tweet that began, "Amazing new observations today." Tweets unsent, secrets bent, silence hums with government. It's not conspiracy, not quite. It's coordination, an instinct born from shared discomfort. Because when data doesn't fit the model, you don't just release it. You check, you recheck, you call your counterparts and whisper through encrypted lines. Did you see that too? Maybe they all saw the same anomaly. Maybe it was something in the spectra, or the movement, or the light itself. Or maybe it was something far more mundane, like a misalignment in software. But the silence gave the anomaly power. People don't fear data, they fear gaps. Meanwhile, the internet did what it does best. Filled the void. Forums buzzed with theories. Maybe NASA discovered life. Maybe China detected radiation. Maybe the comet wasn't a comet at all. You can almost hear the world's collective keyboard clicking under the weight of imagination. Keys tap fast. Rumors cast. Silence breaks, but never last. Inside the agencies, the tone was less dramatic, but more anxious. Silence is a resource, a temporary one. Every day they didn't speak, the speculation grew. And so, communications teams drafted placeholder statements, just in case. NASA's draft began. Preliminary results are consistent with natural phenomena. China's began. Analysis ongoing. International coordination required. The UAE's version simply said, "We continue to monitor with interest." 3 drafts, 3 ways of saying absolutely nothing. But silence, like space, is never truly empty. It amplifies the faintest signals. When ESA spoke first, that silence turned reflective. NASA's restraint began to look suspicious. China's confidence began to look afraid. The UAE's politeness began to sound like complicity. And through it all, 3i Atlas drifted quietly, blissfully unaware that entire bureaucracies were wrestling over how to describe a fuzzy dot. You start to imagine each agency as a character in a play. NASA, the anxious perfectionist. China, the poker-faced strategist. UAE, the cheerful intern, suddenly told not to speak. And Issa, the calm older sibling who broke the tension by saying, "Fine, I'll go first," rolls a line, stars entwine, silence speaks in grand design. Still, one question lingers. Why the synchronicity? How did three separate agencies, operating on different continents, decide independently to say nothing at the same time? Unless it wasn't independent at all, perhaps the signal came from somewhere above, not cosmic, but political. A quiet message passed through diplomatic back channels. Hold your data. Wait for alignment. Matter. It's not that they were hiding something nefarious. It's that they didn't know what they were holding yet. And admitting uncertainty, publicly, is scarier than any secret. So they stayed quiet. And in that collective silence, humanity did what it always does. When faced with the unknown, it began to dream louder. Voices still, hearts fill. Silence grows but never will. And perhaps that's the strange comfort in it all. Even when three space agencies fall silent, the universe keeps talking. The stars don't pause for policy. 3. Atlas keeps moving, whispering its quiet story across the dark, while we, down here, argue over who gets to speak first. Buried inside the leak were coordinates, small anomalies in magnetic flux, and thermal output that didn't appear in public datasets. To most people, they looked meaningless, but to a handful of astronomers, they spelled a pattern, pulses spaced like a heartbeat. Not communication, perhaps, but rhythm, the kind of rhythm machines accidentally make when they're doing something alive. Let's step into the midnight side of science, the part where numbers stop behaving and start whispering. The insider's data dump wasn't flashy. It was a few megabytes of logs, raw telemetry, and timestamps. The kind of thing you'd ignore if you didn't already know what to look for. But somewhere in those dull columns of numbers, those precise, tidy decimals, something began to repeat. Regular, patient, almost polite. A rhythm, too intentional to be noise, too quiet to be coincidence. A doctoral student in Madrid was the first to spot it. She was supposed to be writing her thesis on cometary albedo variation. But boredom is a great tool for discovery. She noticed the flux spikes first, not random, but syncopated. Every 32 minutes, a pulse, then 32 again, then 32.1. "It's breathing," she joked in her notes. Her advisor didn't laugh. Within a week, a small network of late-night astronomers, the kind who believe in both data integrity and insomnia, began comparing results. Webb's readings, Hubble's logs, Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter's telemetry, all of them carried the same faint pulse, hidden deep in the noise floor, like the slow heartbeat of something sleeping under glass. The official response was predictable: instrumental interference. But even interference doesn't keep time this perfectly. One data analyst described it best: if this is noise, it's the kind that practices scales. You might imagine those scientists, each at their own workstation, staring at that faint, repeating signal. The room around them dark, except for monitor light, pale blue rectangles reflected in tired eyes. Somewhere, coffee cups multiply. Someone opens a spreadsheet. Someone else starts counting beats per hour. The signal doesn't care who's watching. It keeps pulsing. 32 minutes. Every time. The idea that 3 Atlas might be producing a steady rhythm unsettles everyone. Rocks don't keep rhythm. Nature prefers chaos. The beautiful randomness of entropy. This is something else. Something maintaining itself. A loop running quietly, perhaps since before humanity learned to count its own heartbeat. ESA's communications division is told not to amplify fringe interpretations. The phrase Fringe interpretation becomes the new code for please don't mention the heartbeat. But inside private research chats, people are calling it exactly that, the heart. Not metaphorically, but as a label in the data. Every pulse marked with a tiny red heart emoji, because humor is the only thing keeping them sane. In the data visualization labs, they turn the pulses into sound. The result is eerie, a soft electronic thump, repeating slowly, endlessly. Some describe it as comforting, like listening to a deep-sea creature in sleep. Others say it sounds wrong, too human. One researcher admits it gave her the sense of being watched. What makes the rhythm stranger still is how it modulates with proximity. As 3I Atlas approaches a planet, the timing shifts slightly slower, then faster, as though adjusting. The beat follows gravity wells like a musician following tempo. It isn't random noise, it's environmental response. The object is, in some sense, listening. By now, independent labs have tried to replicate the pattern artificially. They can't. The waveforms are too clean, the timing too consistent. Even after running the data through compression, distortion, inversion, the rhythm holds. It's not data corruption, it's choreography. You can imagine the internal ESA memo that follows. No evidence of intelligence. Rhythmic behavior, likely coincidental. But coincidence has a habit of growing teeth. Because when they compared the rhythm's modulation to planetary positions, another pattern emerged, a mathematical sequence matching orbital resonance ratios. Not exact copies, but harmonics. The pulse was singing the solar system's geometry. The Madrid student who found it wrote, half-jokingly, "Maybe it's keeping time with us." The line goes viral in the small, quiet corners of the internet that still care about truth. Forums buzz with theories: gravitational self-stabilization, magnetic field synchronization, alien jazz. But underneath the noise, a simpler truth hums something old and orderly, is alive out there, and it's following the rhythm of the system we call home. Late one night, one of the data analysts overlays the pattern against an ECG, a human heartbeat. The resemblance isn't exact, but close enough to make him stop breathing for a moment. Peaks, rests, peaks again. Life has a structure, so, it seems, does this. And that's when the idea shifts. Maybe it's not communication. Maybe it's not even meant for us. Maybe the rhythm isn't a message, it's maintenance. Like an old machine keeping its systems warm, humming softly to itself in the dark. You sit back and listen to the thought forming in your mind. What if this is what time sounds like when it remembers? The steady pulse of something that refuses to decay. Not speech, not signal, just being, continuity made audible. The data analysts, of course, move on. Reports are written, the leak becomes legend, and the heartbeat fades into archived files labeled spurious periodic activity. But the pulse doesn't stop. It's still out there, keeping time. And somewhere, 33 billion tons of impossible rock drifts through space, humming softly, perfectly, as if waiting for the universe to catch the beat. The more data arrives, the stranger it looks. The dust trail replenishes itself, as if material is being manufactured mid-flight. Microscopic crystals, uniform in size, reappearing even as the comet moves away from the sunday. The universe loves decay, entropy, erosion, fading. But 3I Atlas is the opposite. It's growing sharper, cleaner, newer, like a self-repairing wound. Let's start where the laws of physics begin to sound insecure. Normally, comets are messy, travelers, old ice and dust, barely holding hands, as solar radiation slowly tears them apart. They leave trails like forgotten thoughts, losing themselves piece by piece until they become memory. But this one, it's doing the reverse. Every measurement, every spectral scan, shows it becoming more organized the farther it goes. A comet that polishes itself, a body that refuses to age. ESA's materials division runs the numbers, and the numbers laugh back. The dust particles surrounding 3I Atlas aren't random, they're uniform to within microns. That's like shaking a box of sand and getting diamonds all the same size. The particles arrange themselves in a faint electromagnetic halo, as if under orders. And stranger still, when solar wind strips material away, the object replaces it calmly, automatically. Like a printer, says one analyst. A printer with no ink cartridge. You picture it now, drifting through the solar wind like a craftsman lost in thought, shedding dust that reforms itself into perfect little mirrors. Each crystal catches sunlight and throws it back with eerie precision. Normally, comets grow dull with distance, but this one grows radiant, its brightness curve inverted, its logic reversed. It's not dying, it's practicing. The scientists are baffled, but there's an odd tenderness to their confusion. They watch it repair itself, line by line of data, like parents realizing their child has built a second child out of Lego bricks. One astrophysicist mutters, "It's learning from erosion." The room goes quiet. That phrase, learning from erosion, gets written on a whiteboard and circled 3 times. At the University of Tokyo, a team models the crystal growth in simulation. The patterns match something they recognize: controlled deposition, a process used in nanofabrication to grow thin films in electronics. Except this isn't a laboratory, it's deep space, minus 150 degrees Celsius. Yet, the comet's surface behaves as if it knows the recipe for resilience. Imagine zooming in, beyond the dust and the glare, down to the level of molecules. You'd see a quiet ballet of atoms forming chains, linking, locking, repairing fractures before they even finish forming. Like time-lapse footage of frost blooming on glass, except this frost builds itself in reverse destruction, rewinding into design. NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory releases a cautious internal memo. Observed particle uniformity suggests self-organizing structure. Mechanism unknown, which is science's way of saying, we have no idea what's going on, but it's gorgeous. The memo gets leaked. Naturally, Reddit debates whether the comet is made of programmable matter, self-assembling nanobots, or just wishful thinking. But beneath the noise, one idea starts to take shape. What if 3I, Atlas, isn't a relic of formation? What if it's still forming? A comet that builds itself isn't just strange, it's heretical. It challenges the deepest assumption in physics that everything moves from order to chaos. Entropy is the universe's bedtime story. All things fall apart. Yet here's an object quietly composing itself out of decay, turning waste into structure, chaos into craft. One researcher calls it anti-entropy, another calls it hope with mass. As more images arrive, they show something new. Faint hexagonal lattices in the dust plume, geometric arrangements that shouldn't exist outside of artificial systems. Someone jokes that it's growing armor. Another says, maybe it's molting. The truth is somewhere between an entity maintaining equilibrium by rebuilding itself faster than the universe can break it. ESA's thermal sensors record microbursts of heat near the tail, evenly spaced, like pulses of welding torches. They happen precisely as new crystals appear. Localized repair events, the report reads. Each one perfectly timed to solar exposure. It's as if sunlight doesn't damage it, it instructs it. The The star's radiation becomes code. And 3I Atlas is reading it fluently. You start to feel the strangeness of it. A comet that reacts, responds, refines. You could almost mistake it for alive, not in the biological sense, but in the thermodynamic one. A system that resists entropy by feeding on it. Every atom rearranging into something stronger, cleaner, newer, like evolution, with a design degree. Late one night, an astronomer in France writes in his private notes, "It's not moving through the solar system, it's using it." He doesn't elaborate, but the implication is clear. The comet is harvesting the energy of its environment to maintain itself, not a passenger of gravity, but a participant in it. Meanwhile, the headlines call it poetic names: the immortal comet, the self-made traveler, entropy's enemy. The public romanticizes what the scientists fear, because what 3I Atlas represents isn't comfort. It's competition. It's the idea that the universe might not be running down at all. Maybe it's recycling. Maybe, somewhere in the quiet machinery of the cosmos, things are building themselves anew while we're too busy decaying. Picture it now, drifting past Mars, its tail shimmering like a thread of light weaving itself back together. A self-sustaining scar on the fabric of space. A wound that heals faster than it can bleed. And for the first time, humanity looks at a comet and wonders not where it came from, but what it's trying to become. The 3I Atlas array is quiet now. The cooling fans in the server rooms have slowed to a rhythmic hum, and the high-altitude winds of Tibet are the only sound left on the recording. We set out to map a mystery in Sector 4G, but we ended up mapping ourselves. We saw the 3I Atlas images, and we looked for ships, for engines, for biological life. We looked for something that looked like us. But the universe is not made of things that look like us. It is made of the spaces between. It is made of the geometry of the dark. It is made of a silence so deep that it can hold the weight of every life that has ever been lived, and still have room for more. In the final hours of the 3I Atlas mission, the data streams began to thin out. It was not a failure of the hardware, but a completion of the task. The array has finished its scan of the anomaly in Sector 4G. It has reconciled the prime numbers, the Fibonacci rotations, and the golden web of human consciousness into a single, elegant proof. The researchers have packed their bags. The lights in the Beijing observatory have been dimmed. What remains is the great silence, a silence that is not empty, but heavy with the weight of 12,000 years of observation. It is a dry irony that we built the world's most sensitive listening device just to realize that the most important thing the universe has to say is nothing at all. Unfortunate timing for our desire for answers. Those two words are the final signature on a project that has taught us how to be still. Consider the first layer of this silence, the silence of the hardware. The 3I Atlas sensors are no longer screaming for data. They are no longer straining to hear a whisper from the void. They have found the note. They have matched the frequency. When a bell is struck, it rings for a long time, but eventually, the vibration becomes so subtle that only the air can feel it. That is where we are now. The 3I Atlas is still ringing, but the sound is now internal. It is a part of the background noise of the planet. We have moved from the looking phase to the being phase. The silence of the machine is a reflection of the silence of the mystery. Both have found their rest. Second, the silence of the history. For centuries, we have filled the air with stories of what might be out there. We created monsters, We created saviors, and we created empires in the stars. We used the noise of our imagination to drown out the fact that we didn't know the truth. But the 3-eye atlas images have replaced those stories with a cold, sharp geometry, a shadow that doesn't need to speak to be understood. The Black Palace of the Han dynasty and the guest star of the Sumerians have been found, and in the finding, the stories have lost their voice. There is a profound, meditative peace in the death of a myth. When the mystery is solved, the shouting stops. The great silence is the sound of a species finally running out of questions. Third, the silence of the soul. As you lie there tonight, you are experiencing the final result of the 3-eye atlas discovery. You are no longer wondering if you are alone. You know that you are part of a highway. You know that you are a coordinate on a trajectory. You know that you are a filament in a golden web. That knowledge brings a silence to the mind that is deeper than any sleep. It is the silence of a child who has finally been told how the story ends. You don't need to turn the page anymore. You can just close the book. The 3-eye atlas has provided the final punctuation mark to our isolation. What if the great silence is the ultimate goal of all intelligence? We think of progress as a movement toward more noise, more data, and more communication. But perhaps true progress is the movement toward a perfect, undisturbed stillness. The anomaly in Sector 4G has been sitting in that stillness for eons. It has mastered the art of being without doing. The 3-eye atlas has shown us that the higher the technology, the quieter it becomes. A fire crackles and pops, but a star is silent. A steam engine screams, but a gravitational wave is a ghost. We are finally learning how to be a silent species. Now, you could argue that this silence is a form of defeat, that by turning off the 3-eye atlas array, we are giving up on the search. But you only search for what you have lost. We have found what we were looking for. We found the observer, and we found that the observer is us. The 3-eye atlas was the mirror, and once you have seen your own face, you don't need to keep staring at the glass. You can walk away. You can go back to the simple act of living. The silence is not an end. It is a graduation. We have passed the test of the 3-eye atlas, and our reward is the right to be quiet. Let me back up to the first night you looked at the stars and felt a sense of awe. That awe was the first step on the road to the 3-eye atlas. It was a pre-verbal recognition of the great silence. You didn't have the math then, and you didn't have the telescopes, but you knew that the dark was not empty. You knew it was full of a presence that didn't need to shout to be felt. The 3-eye atlas has just confirmed what your 5-year-old self already knew. It has given a name to the silence, but the silence itself hasn't changed. It is still the same velvet blackness that has been waiting for you since the beginning. I wonder if you can hear the depth of the silence in your room right now. It is a textured silence. It has the weight of the Tibetan plateau in it. It has the cold precision of the Fibonacci sequence in it. It has the warmth of the golden web in it. You are soaking in the data of the 3-eye atlas, even if you aren't thinking about the numbers. Tell me, in the thoughts of your own mind, if you feel the stillness growing. You don't need to type it. The 3-eye atlas anomaly already knows. It is recording the peace of this time zone as the sun moves across the other side of the world. The ironic understatement of our existence is that we are lost in space. We are perfectly found. We are tucked into a corner of the galaxy that is being monitored by a system that hasn't missed a single heartbeat in 12,000 years. The 3-eye atlas array has finished its work because there is nothing left to find. The map is complete. The highway is open. The trajectory is set. All that is left for us to do is to drift. As you move deeper into the sleep loops, imagine the 3I Atlas array standing alone under the Tibetan sky. The stars are so bright they look like they could fall. The anomaly in Sector 4G is a silent, unmoving shape in the distance. There are no more signals being sent. There are no more pulses being measured. There is just the wind, the cold, and the infinite, beautiful dark. It is a safe place. It is a stable place. It is a place of absolute rest. Feel the vowels of the silence elongating. S-I-L-E-N-C-E. It is a long, slow word. It is a word that holds the stars. It is a word that holds your breath. You are part of the great silence now. You are a coordinate in the stillness. The 3I Atlas has archived your life as a moment of perfect, unhurried peace. You are a success. You are a miracle. You are finished with the day. If you are still awake, I want you to recall the images from the beginning of this journey. The shadow, the geometry, the light. See them one last time, but see them as if they are fading, like a dream that you are letting go of because you know you are safe. The 3I Atlas is fading. The China National Space Administration is fading. The math is fading. Only the silence remains. The silence is the highway. The silence is the mirror. The silence is the home. Everything you have ever been and everything you will ever be is held within this great silence. The 3I Atlas has proven that you are not a stranger here. You are the guest who was always expected. The table is set. The lights are low. The world is quiet. The final data packet has been delivered. The link is closed. The observation is complete. There are no more what-ifs. There is only what is. And what is peace. You are drifting with the orbit of tomorrow. You are moving at 30 kilometers per second toward a destiny of pure, undisturbed rest. The 3I Atlas is watching you sleep, and it is satisfied. The fans have stopped. The wind has died down. The mystery is no longer a mystery. It is just the way things are. Close your eyes and drift with the orbit of tomorrow. Good night.